7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
Always live on the free Odyssey app.
The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
Completes it to Ty Johnson, the right flat, to the 20, 15, 10, 5, tiptoeing his way to the end zone. Touchdown, Buffalo, Ty Johnson.
So the Bills now back on the board today with Ty Johnson.
Eric Armstead, the defensive tackle. That certainly would be a big boost at that position.
Mike Danger.
They're making it up. They're making it up as they go.
Gene Battaglia.
So my question is, what is next here for the Buffalo Bills? I'm guessing Brandon Beane will do something.
The Amherst hold on, and Devin Levi's 35-save performance, coupled with Riley Stillman getting the game-winning goal, is enough for Rochester.
It's a game day against the New York Islanders. A big game, a big week.
He scored!
Tournament time is almost here.
Selection Sunday.
I'll never leave Syracuse.
So we got Flacco, we got DiVincenzo, and we got Placido Polanco. Guys, that is a hell of a Final Four, I got to tell you.
Spring training is here.
Pie Day, being every day.
Pie.
I want pie.
95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
Welcome on into the Sports Bar. It's Danger and Battaglia. We're glad you're with us and listening along locally at 95.7 FM, AM 950. The Fan Rochester sounds its best in the free-to-download Odyssey app or on your smart device when you ask it to play 95.7 The Fan. And we've even got our video stream up for you. Would love for you to like, subscribe, comment on our YouTube channel at The Fan Rochester, also streaming on Twitch at The Fan Rochester. I'm Danger. That's Battaglia.
I'm in a food coma. How are you today?
It's Pie Day. So
Pie Day,
what Pie Day is, means is that every office in America is holding some sort of team building event where people are bringing in pie, whether it be pizza pie or your favorite sweets and treats. And here we are no different. Big congratulations to Derek, the pizza dude, our engineer, God, that really holds us all together, even if it's with glue and paper clips and bubble gum sometimes. But Derek, the winner of our Pie Day contest, he didn't make a pie, but his cookies are phenomenal. He made
I
some
didn't
cookies.
even get to try it. I mean, I got the leftovers, and that was enough for me.
He made some cookies, lots of good baked goods that were shared earlier today, and of course, Salvatore's stopping by with some pizza pie on Pie Day. So Gino indulged a little bit. I indulged a little bit. We're going to power through the next 3 hours, Gino.
I think so. Yeah. It was I don't know. Was it a cheat day? I guess we could
call it a cheat day. Well, every day is a cheat day for me. But yes, we'll call it a cheat day. And we'll line up some great guests to talk with us here in the Sports Bar this afternoon, including one of our favorites joining us in the 4 o'clock hour. Sabres have a big game tonight. They're hosting the Islanders, and that percentage chance going to the postseason can rise from 3% to 5% with a win, Gino.
It's one of those things that your eyes tell you, wait a second. Like the Sabres, by the time the weekend comes, they could be only 3 points out of a playoff position. But right now, and again, you would need another loss for Detroit, but why only 3%? I got to trust the people with the math that know this. But certainly the Sabres are playing better. There's no doubt about it. Last 11 games, this team is 7-3-1. So the push for, I don't know what we want to call this. We love talking hockey with Joe Yurden, the Bleacher Report, noted hockey. He'll be joining us in the 4 o'clock hour.
Later this hour, lots of changes around the NFL, obviously, with the new league here getting underway in free agency. Andy Behrens from Yahoo Fantasy will let us know how things have shifted a little bit here in the world of fantasy football and some of these moves that teams have made here through free agency.
Yeah, I mean, gosh, it's felt like a football week, has it not? Like we've been talking to all our regulars this week about the Buffalo Bills, and when we're in football season, we talk to one of the experts in the industry, Andy Behrens from Yahoo, who will be joining us here. And I mean, gosh, what do you do with Atlanta's situation? Do you automatically bump everybody up there? What do you do in Minnesota without a quarterback? I mean, these are the stories now heading to the draft. Some of these teams are going to be left short-handed. And I also want to ask Andy this question, because when was the last time entering a season we had a Buffalo Bill that was a first-round fantasy player?
Other than Josh Allen?
Josh Allen, really not first round. I don't think you could say lock, because more often than not, you're drafting running backs.
When you factor in the Bills tax in a lot of fantasy football leagues, I'm sure there's a lot of guys in leagues that'll be like, I don't care. I'm taking Josh Allen in the first round.
And you know what? That's fine. Enjoy it. Have fun. some of us like to win. There's other quarterbacks.
Oh, yeah? Well, I like Josh Allen. In the first round, with the first pick, I don't care if it's only a 10-team league.
Oh, yeah? Well, my quarterback is better.
Oh, yeah? Well, I'm going to go to a Bills game. What do you think of that?
Oh, yeah? Well, I'm going to go up to Buffalo, and I'm going to go get some hot wings and blue cheese. And then after that, I'm going to take my kids to the Bills game.
Sorry. Got off track. James Cook is a first-round fantasy football.
Seriously,
pick.
Was McCoy a first rounder? I think probably at one point, right? But with Buffalo?
Well, selfishly, because I know Andy's in Chicago, I want to know what his take is on what's left here in free agency as we get closer to the draft, and what could happen here with Justin Fields and the Bears having that number 1 overall pick. What does summer look like in Chicago for the Bears if they don't move on from Justin Fields at some point?
Every Bears, you guys are going to be like, I don't know. They're going to screw it up. The world is over. It's all awful anyways. Rather than looking at this as an opportunity, transformational opportunity for your franchise, every Bear fan I know, negative. You're not alone, Danger. That
on
regard.
Quarterback, it's hard to be optimistic because with quarterback, historically, they've screwed it up.
Again, you have the number 1 overall pick. Like, if you're not going to be optimistic now, when? When? You're going to be miserable in perpetuity.
It's a team that thought starting Craig Krenzel would be a good idea. Tyson Bagent. We haven't recovered from Cade McNown. I mean, Henry Burris. Do I have to continue?
I've got some good news. We know Nate Peterman's not going to come back somehow.
I saw that. Thank Christ. Thank the heavens that Nathan Peterman has moved on and now is New Orleans issue.
Well, correct. And I think the world has come full circle here in the sports bar. Like the one side that's left, that we had originally with Masterstroke, how that was all born. Wasn't it because of the little bit against New Orleans that Nate Peterman entered his spot?
You're right. It was. I was at that game. I remember being at that game, being so disgusted with a lot of Bills fans, friends of mine, and we left. And as we were leaving, I remember hearing a giant cheer from what was left of the crowd, and it was a cheer because they pulled Tyrod Taylor and inserted Nathan Peterman.
Oh, it wasn't because Nate Peterman did something good.
No, it was just because they brought in Peterman. And, of course, that reaction spurned this reaction, the birth of a legend in the sports bar.
This is a masterstroke by McDermott.
Anything more than what Tyrod did last week, I would consider thriving for a Buffalo Bills quarterback.
Then that should be Peterman's stats after the first quarter.
Peterman is going to make mistakes.
He might not make it out of the first half.
I have been waiting since week 1, and I think that Peterman, from everything we've seen in preseason and in the little bit in New Orleans, I think he's the man.
Dom, I'm warning you.
You watch, Gene.
You are crazy. Why can't it be us? Dude, you're going to be so disappointed
I'm not.
Monday.
There is no way I'm going to be disappointed Monday.
I love that guy.
Yeah. By the way, this is where the narrator comes in and says he was disappointed on Monday. Peterman now in New Orleans. So, yes, at least I have that stench off of my team. But we'll get Andy in here and we'll get his take on this offseason up to date and what exactly it might mean for fantasy purposes here later when we get closer to draft season at the end of the summer. Andy Barron's always great with this time. You can join us on Elon's Twitter. That's X at the Fan Rochester, and our phone lines are always open for you at 585-866-4FAN, 866-4326.
I was down visiting one of our fine clients today, Havana Mo.
Love me some Havana Mo's.
He brought up a good point because I feel like we're the only show that say this when owners say, "Hey, I want to win a championship like Jerry Jones," and no, they don't. No, they don't. This salary cap danger. Let's compare it to baseball, okay? Or specifically one owner in baseball. Now, the comparison isn't exactly apples to apples because baseball has a soft cap, and you can blow right by the soft cap. But if you do, you pay a tax, and there's different levels of taxes, and all the way up to like the Steve Cohen tax, and that's where I'm going with this. The Mets owner there, Steve Cohen, bought the team because he was a fan, has all this money, and he's just going to spend it willy-nilly. It doesn't result, and Danger makes fun of me on this.
I love that he has all this money to spend, but he still can't draw the biggest names with all of that money to spend. That says something.
Well, that's a story for a different day.
Yes, I'm sorry.
But the point is, like, there you have an owner that, what salary cap? It doesn't mean anything, and that's one of the problems with baseball. Why can't you do this in the NFL? What is the penalty? Oh, boy, like if the Buffalo Bills wanted to go out and get Eric Armstead, let's just say, for instance, and they do it.
And they start the season, the league year, over the cap. Over the cap, right.
It's a $5 million fine.
Oh, you don't get penalized with draft picks?
You could, but if you were really going to go all in, it's $5 million, and then maybe you get a draft pick taken away for that. So the draft pick maybe is the deterrent, but the money certainly isn't because, my gosh, all this money going around.
$5 million a drop in the bucket for these aliens.
It's a tax.
Yeah.
But you know what? You are invited originally into the club of 32 men, that this is the deal. That we are going to keep the costs right here, what we negotiated, because if you dare step out of line. So that's why these owners meet, 4 times a year, once a quarter. They are all looking at each other. Don't you do that? Don't you do that? Don't you do that? And in the rare instance something like this happens, now it wasn't over the cap, but it was guaranteed money. The Deshaun Watson contract, Danger, broke new ground in the NFL. Holy cow, 5-year contract. The Browns gave fully guaranteed $230 million. Every quarterback since then has asked for that. And you know what the answer's been? No.
Right.
I'm sorry, Lamar Jackson. If you want that contract, go talk to the Browns, all right? Or like anybody else. We're not going to follow that. So that's what I want to just kind of point out here is that this league, ultimately, the owners are here to make money. If they win, that's great. Sometimes winning leads to more sales and more money, but ultimately they're not going to do whatever it takes to win. They're going to stay under the cap because they have to.
That's right. And this is the time of year where most fans get excited hoping that their team will sign the big name free agent, make a big splash. And some teams just have different priorities. Like, I get the sense that Dallas is doing what Dallas is doing for a very specific reason, and it might be to get more draft picks in next year's draft. Or that the Bills are doing what they're doing for a very specific reason because they value bringing guys back that are familiar, that they're familiar with and that are familiar with them. Guys like Ty Johnson, who will be back in 2024. We'll talk more about that here at running back for the Buffalo Bills. So I think different teams have different values, and I think there is some organizations where there's absolutely a disconnect from ownership to the GM to the coach to the quarterback. Those are the organizations where the most dysfunction is happening.
I think the Cowboys, I think it's a totally different reason. The story today that Dak Prescott is under investigation for sexual assault. This dates back to an incident in 2017. Now, he's countersued this woman, but you better believe the NFL and the Cowboys know the real deal. And I don't know if I can connect to the, hey, we're going to spend, and all of a sudden, not spending. What's going on here? I can't say those two stories are connected, but that is a big story today in Dallas that Dak Prescott is showing up on the radar for all the wrong reasons. And as we always like to say, we're just kind of passing this along, and we'll see how the process plays out.
The Bills also, and this is not really salary cap related, Gino, but I do think it is interesting that they have proposed a bylaw change that would expand the elevation rules for clubs to elevate a third player, a quarterback from the practice squad who's a bona fide quarterback, to be the emergency third quarterback. So last season, I don't know if you saw this or not, last season there was teams were granted the emergency third quarterback, but that person counted as one of the game day inactives. They could also play if the top two quarterbacks were injured, but that third quarterback had to be on the 53-man roster. The Bills' proposal presumably here would allow most, if not all, teams to carry only 2 quarterbacks on their active roster, have the third on the practice squad, but have that third practice squad quarterback available on game days without counting against the 53 in the event that the first 2 quarterbacks get injured in the game.
What's that about? Cost control. That's all it's about, because you're paying somebody on the practice squad, hey, Zach Wilson, I don't know, pick a crappy quarterback out there, and you want another shot in this league? Okay, practice squad, and you're getting the practice squad salary, and then if we get bumped up, we'll give you the 1-game salary. If I'm the NFLPA, I'm screaming murder on that. I'm like, no, we're not doing that. Like, you have 3 quarterbacks, and you keep them active.
The other thing that has kind of emerged here in the last couple of days, and this is something that the league might dive into a little bit, Gino. We laugh and joke about the legal tampering period, which gets underway Monday and lasts until the league year gets underway a couple days later. It is a little bit fishy that Monday at noon began the legal tampering period in the NFL, and within 90 minutes, the Falcons negotiated a contract with a player who's coming off an Achilles tendon tear, paid him $100 million guaranteed. Like, do you mean to tell me that Kirk Cousins didn't have any contact with anybody from Atlanta prior to that legal tampering window? I mean, everybody does it, right? You know that everybody's having those conversations at the combine, but if Cousins physically went to Atlanta, physically met with the head medical trainer, all in advance of legal tampering, that's something the NFL is going to come down on them for, isn't it?
It should.
Right.
Like, technically, like, even in that 48-hour window, Monday to Wednesday, you're only allowed to talk to the agent.
And this kind of...
Yeah, so you're not even allowed to talk to the player.
This kind of came up with Cousins during his introductory press conference. I mean, some of the things that he was sharing, he probably shouldn't be sharing if you want to give the impression that you weren't illegally tampered with, in terms of them meeting with him prior to him being a free agent. And the Vikings had every right. The Vikings should be pressing the NFL to look into this. If they're not, they're asleep at the wheel. Because at minimum, Atlanta should be penalized with draft picks. I mean, we've seen this before, and recently, Miami.
I don't think the Vikings would do it, because everybody probably does it. Like, this is not unique. It's just like Kirk Cousins, probably not the brightest guy to, like, kind of timeline it for everybody here that would think, wait a second, how is this possible? And then kind of validating that, too, was actually Florio reporting this, like, what was it, 2 weeks ago? And he can take a victory lap that Kirk Cousins was already looking at property in the Atlanta area. So,
well, Cousins looking at property in the Atlanta area isn't tampering, but Cousins looking at property in the Atlanta area and then going to meet with the head athletic trainer of the Atlanta Falcons is, or meeting with Kyle Pitts, or having getting recruited by Kyle Pitts, or getting recruited by anybody within the Falcons organization during that time.
No, players can do that. They do it all the time. So, like Von Miller saying, hey, come on over, like, that's not tampering. Maybe that's kind of the new wave of kind of doing it. You can have a player recruit to anybody else. It's management. It's like, you can't do this if you're a GM representing. There are certain rules. So, again, I don't think the Vikings do anything here, because then you're going to get a whole league. It'll be like the Spider-Man meme of everybody pointing to one another here.
I hope they do. I think they will. I think they should. I really think they should. Like, there's no way you can tell me that within 90 minutes of legal tampering, you're able to negotiate. You're able to get the medicals and everything you need from Kirk Cousins and negotiate that kind of a deal without the legal tampering. I mean, the agent, sure, but Cousins himself mentioning how much he loves the staff and the medical trainers and everything in Atlanta in his introductory press conference. Like, how do you know everybody so quickly, Kirk? Oh, that's right. You've been meeting with them in advance. That's
the other story, too, and this one's more interesting. If you're the Giants, do you press tampering against the Eagles? I would, because Saquon Barkley quickly going to Philadelphia.
Yeah.
Well, where did Barkley play his college ball? Penn State. James Franklin saying that Howie Roseman had been in contact. Now, I don't know if that's enough, but if you can find another source that this is actually going on, that Roseman was talking to James Franklin and talking to the Penn State grad there, former player Saquon Barkley. I think that's also an interesting one, considering they're two divisional rivals.
Sure. Yeah, we know it goes on every year, and we know that the Combine is a great, meeting and convention of agents and owners and GMs. The Cousins piece feels a little bit dicey. That feels a little bit like if I'm Minnesota, I'm pressing the league on that one a little bit. All right, we're going to get to Andy Barron's Yahoo Fantasy Sports. He joins us next. Man, speaking of Cousins, with all of these moves around the NFL this week that we've seen during the start of free agency, your mind starts to think about what your fantasy football draft might look like here at the end of the summer, and who moves where and who benefits the most. And now with Saquon Barkley in Philadelphia, what are your thoughts on that? How does it all shake out? What are Andy's thoughts on who wins and loses in free agency up to this point, and what it might mean for your fantasy football team here coming up later in the 2024 season? We'll be joined by Andy Barron's of Yahoo Fantasy, and we have time for your calls as well at 866-4FAN, 866-4326.
You're listening to The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia. Sports Update.
Sabres hockey tonight. Buffalo 5 points out of a playoff spot, trailing the Islanders and the Detroit Red Wings. The Isles, the opponent tonight. Don Granato says, watch that top line.
It's obviously three players that command respect, and you have to contend with elite talent, and be aware of that. This league has lots of impressive talent, and when you look at their lineup tonight and you have three guys of that stature on one line, yes, it demands your attention.
Coverage begins at 7 here on the Fan Rochester. Buffalo Bills bringing back running back Ty Johnson. Former Buffalo Bill quarterback Nathan Peterman today signing with New Orleans. We'll talk to Andy Barron's Yahoo Fantasy coming up next in the Sports Bar. ACC Tournament, Pitt leading Wake Forest 38-26. Gene Battaglia on the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan Rochester.
Straight up with no chaser. You're in the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia on the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
Andy Barron's Yahoo Fantasy joining us in the Sports Bar. Andy, I want to talk about all the free agent moves with the new league year. Happy New Year. But selfishly, you and I are both Chicago guys, and I wanted to know, because you're in the blast zone there, there are a lot of people in Chicago, I know, that believe Justin Fields is QB1 and shouldn't be taken for granted, that going after Caleb Williams would be a mistake when you have somebody like Fields already on your roster. What's the sense that you're getting from Chicago in terms of what's gone on here? Because one of the dominoes that we expected to fall certainly has not fallen, and it now looks like the opportunity has been wasted to move on from Justin Fields.
Yeah, first of all, I want to say that it's great to be back with you guys. I knew as soon as the Nathan Peterman signing happened that you'd be having me on. That was obvious. Yeah, it is you know what? It's a conversation that you can't avoid because it's every sports radio station. It's casual conversation. It's all over the place. Like, randoms are asking me questions about Justin Fields and why he hasn't been traded and whether he shouldn't be the starting quarterback. And it's I can't wait to get past it. I will say from a personal perspective, I love him. I don't I have some issues with the player himself, and I don't actually think that we've seen a lot of development from his rookie season, and I think that's a coaching failure. But man, you want to talk about somebody who answers every question, takes responsibility for every mistake, and is a face of the franchise human being. That is Justin Fields. And if this team were to simply say, hey, we want to roll with Justin Fields for the next 5 years, and this is our guy, I'd be like, hell yeah, let's do it. I think he's just clearly a very good person with some incredible traits. That said, I think if you have a chance to draft Caleb Williams, you should. And this is, maybe you're a May guy. There's other options at the top. For me, it would be Williams for sure. I think if you have a chance to reset the sort of salary situation at quarterback, and you have somebody who you think has a ceiling that is that high, I think you have to do it. I guess I would push back a little bit on the idea that there are no potential landing spots for Justin Fields because not every team has solved the quarterback problem. Like, the Raiders just brought in Gardner Minshew, which is not exactly answering your quarterback problem. And the Vikings just brought in Sam Darnold, which is not exactly resolving the quarterback problem. And Denver simply doesn't have a quarterback that anyone can trust. And Seattle is probably looking past Geno Smith, right? So there are teams, there are places, there are destinations where Justin Fields would make some sense. So I don't think that's done. But I truly, I can't even listen to Chicago sports radio anymore, which has been one of my great joys for so long, because it's just wall to wall Justin Fields talk. And, everybody is dug in. Nobody's changing anybody's mind, and we'll just have to see what the franchise does.
Well, Andy, if you want to listen to Buffalo Bills talk, you're always welcome to punch us up here. I know that, Andy, one team, every week we had you on, it felt like we were asking about this team, and maybe it was because we're all invested somewhat in their offense. What is Arthur Smith doing in Atlanta? Why can't they find a... Well, Arthur Smith is gone. Kirk Cousins now is in. Can we now trust the potential of Kyle Pitts and Drake London, and they bring in a Darnell Mooney? How do you see this playing out in Atlanta, Andy?
Yeah, this one's actually really simple, and I know that there's a variety of opinions on Kirk Cousins and whether he can be like a guy who takes you deep into the postseason and all that. But there's just simply no question that Kirk Cousins is a great regular season quarterback and can feed skill players, right? Like Kirk Cousins is pretty clearly one of the 12, 15 best quarterbacks in the world. He's got a very good arm. He's a very good deep ball thrower. There's just a lot to like with Cousins here, and he was the one quarterback that you can just absolutely fully trust, who was available in this offseason. And the fact that he landed with London, can you trust Kyle Pitts going forward? No, I'm not going to say you can trust him, but this is the best situation he's been in. And to folks who didn't, and I don't blame anybody who wasn't watching Atlanta Falcons football all year. The quarterback play was atrocious. It was about as poor as we saw across the league. Every week brought new horrifying turnovers and new ways to lose games. Like it was really, really bad. So the upgrade from Ritter Heineke to Kirk Cousins is staggering. It is an absolutely massive upgrade. It is a huge win for all the skilled players there, and that includes the running backs as well, right? Like when the offense has greater upside, it's good for everyone. So it is, as far as situations that we can spin, it's the easiest one of all of them. Like it's a huge win for everybody, every skill player associated with Atlanta, and it's kind of devastating for the Vikings because there's absolutely no replacing Cousins with anything that was available. They brought in Darnold. They'll probably draft a quarterback, but they're not in position to draft one of the three best quarterbacks unless they make a big swing on a trade. So I don't know. Maybe they're going into the season with like J.J. McCarthy and Sam Darnold, and that's their best case scenario. That to me, that's not terribly exciting.
Andy, I think it was you who said famously on our show that the star of that Atlanta offense last year was indeed Arthur Smith, that Arthur Smith wanted to be the star of the Atlanta Falcons offense. And as Gino mentioned, he's gone. He's now the offensive coordinator in Pittsburgh. And if Arthur Smith wants to be the star of the offense in Pittsburgh, well, I think there's another guy in Pittsburgh now that would like to have a say in how big of a star he can possibly be. We know what kind of baggage Russell Wilson brings with him. So talk a little bit about Russell Wilson in Pittsburgh. Is this going to be a competition? What is Kenny Pickett now relegated to backup role? How do you see this all playing out here in Pittsburgh? Because that's a fascinating story to me.
Yeah, listen, I would encourage people to look at the Kenny Pickett game log from last year. It was absolutely amazing. I want to say that I believe he threw one touchdown pass in his final 7 games and like 2 touchdown passes in maybe his last 9 games. I mean, there was just nothing there. And yes, it was a Matt Canada offense and nobody liked it, and it was bland and it was a little predictable, and everybody had their roles from which they never broke away. And to Kenny Pickett's credit, he never turned the ball over. Like that was good too. But there's no ceiling to that offense last year. And I think they probably have to move on from Pickett. The problem with Wilson, and this is another one where, like, if anybody watched the Denver Broncos throughout the season, they managed around Russell Wilson. Sean Payton didn't trust him to do anything. Like, look at the passing charts from Russell Wilson last year. He literally only threw at or behind the line of scrimmage, and then he would take a couple of deep shots every game. And there was no over the middle. There was no intermediate, no interesting route combinations that resulted in pass attempts. It was a wild offense, and I know that the numbers looked fine in the end, but that was not a serious NFL offense. And if he can't be better than that, if he can't be someone else, then there's not a lot of hope in Pittsburgh either. And now they've dealt away Deontay Johnson, which I guess I understand. And, we're not necessarily talking about a superstar receiver there, but it created an immediate need for a Deontay Johnson type in Pittsburgh, right? Because if you're going to have Russell Wilson as your quarterback, you better have receivers who can get open immediately, or you have to have a bunch of like manufactured like tunnel screens, things like that, things that just get the ball out quickly, because all Russell Wilson has done for the last couple of years is throw short. and at some point you have to conclude that that's what he is most comfortable doing. If that's the case, they have a lot of work to do on the receiving corps.
Andy Barron's Yahoo Fantasy is our guest. Andy, what do we think of Will Levis? I mean, the Titans doing some interesting things. Now, it's not a surprise that Derrick Henry walked and he lands in a good spot for him in Baltimore, but it's going to be interesting because you have two receivers who have been around for a while, and Calvin Ridley, are you surprised he got all that money there? And how does this all kind of look now with Tony Pollard now going in as your lead running back with the Titans?
Yeah, I guess I want to give the Titans credit for doing everything they could in this free agency period to support a young quarterback, right? And I'm not like fully sold on Will Levis, although I do think he made some beautiful throws last year, some terrific deep balls, obviously some great work with Hopkins along the way. So I think there's hope there. But this is also one of those teams where everything is new, right? And there's a team like this every year where, like, okay, we got a new head coach, which means a new coordinator, and we've brought in a new running back, and hey, we've got a young developing quarterback, and we've brought in a new free agent receiver too, and like that's rarely good right off the bat, right? Like I would expect this to be ugly for the first 2 months of the season because that's just too much newness. It just like it almost never works out. We like to say that it's a continuity league, and for the moment, the Titans are just simply not going to have it. That's fine because it's clearly a transitional year for the franchise. As for whether it's too much money for Calvin Ridley, like he was so close to so many big games last year, and he is a guy who's had a couple of those seasons in Atlanta were absolute triumphs. So I don't, you got to pay money to get talent, and it's a limited pool of very good receivers in this year's free agent class. So actually, the money seemed fine to me. And I want to give them a lot of credit for doing all they can to support Will Levis, who he's not a perfect prospect by any means, but he showed us a few things last year.
For the pool being limited on the wide receiving free agent market, Andy, the running back free agent market kind of exploded, and we've seen teams and we've seen the league as a whole kind of suppress the running back market, yet this feels like this offseason there was a little bit of give in terms of who got signed, how much they got signed for. Not really seeing the big long-term deals, but it's some deals that are pretty hefty when you look at what Saquon got, when you look at what Josh Jacobs got. So you look at some of these brand names for fantasy. Who has won? Who landed in the most optimal of spaces that will improve their lot in life here when we get to draft season later in the end of the summer?
Well, I appreciate that you asked this question because I just wrote about this today. I wrote up all the brand name running backs who changed teams, and this was like Monday and Tuesday were just everything we could have asked for because we knew there was going to be this great game of musical chairs at running back because not only did we have all these guys who were hitting free agency, but we had so many guys who were potential cap casualties too, who were perhaps going to get cut. That was the Joe Mixon situation. And so I wrote up something on all these guys today. I'll just tell you that I think the biggest winners were, number one, Josh Jacobs, who is just chronically underrated. I think because Josh Jacobs isn't like a guy with 4.3 speed and he's not like the big breakaway home run hitter, I think people don't understand how elusive he is. He has led the NFL in missed tackles forced in 2 of his first 4 NFL seasons. He's always been top 5 in the NFL in missed tackles. He won a rushing crown a couple years ago. He was immediately great last year as soon as Josh McDaniels wasn't his head coach. So I love Josh Jacobs. And I'm an Aaron Jones fan, but Josh Jacobs is a very clear upgrade over almost every running back in the league. And that was a big get for Green Bay. I think Jacobs now is an easy first-round pick. I don't know if it'll shake out that way because for whatever reason, people don't believe the numbers on Josh Jacobs. People don't trust their eyes. I have no idea. But Josh Jacobs is great, and he's in an ascending offense, and I love that landing spot. Derrick Henry, obvious winner, right? Going to Baltimore. It's a run-heavy team. He's on the older side, right? He's a 30-year-old back, but he showed us plenty last year. So that's a great situation. The running backs in Baltimore actually combined for like 18 rushing touchdowns last year, and almost all of that gets funneled to Henry now. So great situation for him. I'll also say that, like, Joe Mixon ended up a pretty big winner, and we thought that was going to be, like he gets cut at a moment when, he didn't even have a chance to go through like the full free agency process. So that may have seemed kind of cruel. And then he ended up in what, in my opinion, was the best landing spot out there in Houston, right? Like, I think the free agent class should have just been lining up at the Texans offices trying to get signed by that team, because that is a developing offense with a great quarterback, a real chance to be a top 5 offense this year. Good offensive line, great receivers, and they just needed somebody to slide into the featured role in the backfield, and they got a good one. So I think Joe Mixon is somebody who's probably going to end up still going in the 3rd round, but that is somebody who could easily deliver first-round numbers if he stays healthy.
Andy Barron's Yahoo Fantasy is our guest. So, Andy, I would be remiss if I didn't ask you a Buffalo Bills-related fantasy question. We're just kind of debating before you came on. Wait a second. James Cook, is he a late first-round pick this year? And if so, when was the last time we had something like that? Now, here up in Western New York, you pay the Bills tax, and some people are probably drafting Josh Allen in the first round, Andy. But the question being about Cook, or do we have to kind of table this to see what the Bills do here in free agency, what's remaining here in the draft?
Yeah, so as for the fantasy side of it, I don't think Cook is maybe in a local Buffalo area draft this will happen, but I don't think he's really going to go ahead of guys like, you start naming the names: Isaiah Pacheco, Jahmyr Gibbs, Breece Hall, Jacobs for me, Saquon Barkley. Like those are the guys that are going to be immediately ahead of him, and I don't think enough is going to happen for him to nudge ahead of those guys, especially when we have questions about, how often is Josh Allen going to score the touchdowns and how often is it going to be James Cook. So, but I do think he's squarely in the 2nd round right now, and I think Josh Allen is probably squarely in the 2nd round right now in most drafts. Maybe again in Buffalo drafts he'll be a first-round pick. I think you're right about that. I don't suspect that team is going to make a huge priority of running back in this draft. I don't even think there's that many great running backs available necessarily in this draft class, so I think he's sort of dodged those bullets. The obvious thing for Buffalo, of course, is enhancing the receiving core, and maybe it's not some great loss to for Gabe Davis to have left in free agency. Shakir showed a little bit last year, but obviously that's a team that's got to nail the receiver position in this draft.
Hey, Andy, before we let you go, I want to give you plenty of time here also to talk about the tight end position. This is your moment to talk about Sam Laporta and his outlook for 2024 and whether or not he's tight end 1 going into the...
Well, we could just talk Iowa sports here because you could talk
Sure.
about Caitlin Clark, too.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Hey, man, if you're just giving me the floor to talk Iowa, I am actually on my way to Iowa City next week to see the first couple rounds of the women's tournament. I am fully invested in the Caitlin Clark show. What's the expiration date on me being able to take a victory lap on Sam Laporta?
This is why you're the expert.
Yeah, forever.
Yeah, I actually think that Kelsey did enough in the postseason that he may have reclaimed the tight end 1 title, but I think the important thing to note at tight end next season is that it is no longer there's no longer a top tier that's just one guy, right? Which is what it's been in recent years, which has really forced Travis Kelce into the first round. I don't think you're going to see that anymore. I think you're going to see Laporta, Kelce, maybe Andrews, maybe Trey McBride, all of them kind of going like 3rd round, 4th round next year. I don't think we're going to see anybody in the first round for quite some time.
Andy, I got to sneak in one baseball question. I've been trying to get Danger to get into fantasy baseball here, but you bring up a good point in your article today, because for fantasy baseball players, it's steals, it's saves. Those are the 2 categories we're all chasing. And well, maybe it kind of changed here with all these committees going on right now. You're making an argument, hey, don't overreach here for saves.
Yeah. I've never been one of these. There is an argument out there that you have to get these elite closers because at least you'll have one surefire source of saves. The eternal truth with saves in fantasy baseball is that something like a third to a half of all closer roles get flipped at some point in the season, and you can literally always find the stat on the wire. it is a pain to chase it all year, but that's what you sign up for in fantasy baseball, right? Where there's a couple categories that we're just chasing all year. And as long as you can wrap your head around the idea that I'm going to have to be speculating on bullpen situations all year, I feel like that's the way you should approach it, rather than, using a 4th round, 5th round, 6th round pick on essentially somebody who's helping you in one category only.
All right, Andy, so let's make sure you have plenty of time here to talk, because we know there's no time off when you're not chasing Caitlin Clark all over the country and following her journey here in the postseason. Your work at Yahoo doesn't just end when football season ends. Obviously, you're going to be talking a lot of fantasy baseball here through the course of the summer as well.
Yeah, we're firing up fantasy baseball right now, and we've got fresh content all the time. I'm headed out the door right now for a draft in the Chicago suburbs. I've got drafts every day. It feels like until the regular season gets underway. But yeah, just head over to sports.yahoo.com/fantasy. You can find all of our fresh baseball content.
Andy, this is a treat to have you on here. Thanks so much for your time today. Appreciate it.
Oh, love talking to you guys. Appreciate it.
Yeah, there he is. Andy Behrens, one of our favorites, joining us from Chicago. It is Andy Behrens of Yahoo Fantasy Sports. And not just football with Andy. He does the baseball stuff, and he does it as good as anybody out there does. He's worth a follow, and his work on Yahoo is fantastic.
That's interesting. I like getting a perspective from the outside, because if I just presented you the stat last year, who was the running back who led in yards from scrimmage? Well, it was CMC. You drafted Christian McCaffrey, you might have won your league. Many people did.
As close to a cheat code as you could have gotten last year in fantasy football.
Who was second?
Was it Jacobs?
It was James Cook.
Oh, James Cook. That's right. No,
James Cook.
Jacobs was a couple of years ago.
Right, because, but you would think, wait a second, the guy who was second is not going to be a first rounder, and well, the reason is who's going to get the touchdowns here.
Mm-hmm.
That's really what it is. So, yes, for volume, I still think James Cook. In fact, he could get more volume here, Danger. I don't know. If you're kind of just tuning in, Ty Johnson's coming back to Buffalo, which is a good thing. But you still got to add something else to that room. And I don't know if that's going to be another free agent or maybe in the draft here.
Yeah, man, and his take on Josh Jacobs and his landing spot. You could look at Josh Jacobs, and he might not be viewed as the most appealing of options at running back, coming off that year in Vegas where he was franchise tagged. But at just 26 years old, signing with Green Bay, you imagine that he's going to have all of the opportunity that you saw Dylan and Aaron Jones get last year. Josh Jacobs is a first-round back. That's a good landing spot for Josh Jacobs from a fantasy perspective. And to hear Andy kind of gush about Josh Jacobs was interesting to me.
Yeah, it's kind of gets your blood pumping, doesn't it, Danger?
Oh, I love talking fantasy football. Love it. Next, we're going to take some time out for some takes on tap with I'll Drink to That.
It's been such a busy week here in the sports bar. We haven't gotten to this, the Bills experience.
Oh, the Bills experience.
Yeah, the Bills experience. So,
where they have the banker sitting next to you?
Yeah. Why would you need, if you are renting retail space in a strip mall, that would mean kind of invite the public in, right? No. No, this is the exclusive club, everybody. And then when your number gets called, that's when it's like a doctor's office. You just can't walk in there and say, hey, I'm kind of interested here.
Oh, no.
Tell me more. No.
Okay.
No, so there are some details here I just want to share with you.
What if Masterstroke was the bouncer for the Bills experience? Hey, you got him outside the door. Hey, guys, not for nothing, but, you want to check out the Bills experience. I think Nathan Peterman might be in there.
No, he would be the guy what do you mean you got more time to think about this? What are you talking about?
You bring him in as the closer. I don't really know. Is this worth my investment? And then you bring in Masterstroke, and he's like, hey, guys, let me tell you why this is a good idea. Hey, cuz, let me tell you why you need to sign for your season tickets here. Right here, on site. Sign now. Absolutely. He's your closer.
Did other teams do this? This just seems weird to me, the way this is set up. I don't know. Is this normal?
What's weird to me, and this is just me, this is a personal thing. What's weird to me is that you're going in and you're going to sit down and you're going to have a banker next to you and say, hey, financing is available. It's like, I don't want debt. Maybe it's me, and maybe I don't want to deal with interest rates, and I don't want to deal with financing. And if I can't afford to pay for it with the money I have saved or with the cash I have on hand, then I'm kind of not interested.
They're not going to look like the banker, Danger. It's like when you buy the car, then all of a sudden you have to deal with a finance person. But he's in a different office there. So yeah, I wonder if that's what it's like. Well, we'll share what we know coming up.
I'm going to pat myself on the back and go on the record. I was right about this guy all along. I've been right about this guy for a long, long time. I'm not going to tell you who it is, but I'm telling you he's very prominent in the NFL, and he could be very prominent in the future as well if he has his way.
I hope not.
I don't think he will, but if he has his way, we'll talk about him every day because that's what he wants. But I was right all along. We'll discuss that and more. I'll Drink to That is coming up in the sports bar. We'll also check in with Joe Yurden, talk some Buffalo Sabres hockey. That's coming up in the 4 o'clock hour as well. Your phone calls, 866-4FAN, 585-866-4326. Oh, Gino, before I forget, this is a good time to remind everybody that a week from today, while we're watching some tournament action, the ACC tournament, the SEC, the Big 12, the Big East, all the tournaments going on, it's here. It's here. It's next Thursday.
Right. It is one of the best days, and come on, you're going to cut out of work a little early, are you not? Maybe you take a half day. Maybe you work nights, and you want to come over and have a cold one with us.
We can share a cold one and maybe a win or two.
For the first time, we are in Chili, Mike Danger.
Can't
yes,
wait.
West Side. We are at the tap room at Bill Gray's, Chili Avenue, where they have their fantastic menu. They're going to add some delicious things for us here at Thursday, and they're going to have some great drink specials. So come on out. We're going to watch the tournament, have a lot of fun coming up Thursday.
This is exciting. I can't wait to get out to the tap room at Bill Gray's Chili Avenue location to start the tournament. And they do have their expanded menu while we're there on Thursday, Gino. I'm hoping that we have a wide array of appetizers in front of us, from the fantail shrimp to the clam strips, the deep fried pickles. Sign me up. Join the sports bar. Danger and Battaglia will be live at the tap room at Bill Gray's Chili. That's a week from today, Thursday, March 21st, for the start of the NCAA tournament.
You're listening to the Sports W239BF Rochester. The sports leader. 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester.
Always live on the free Odyssey app.
The Fan, Rochester. Sports update.
Sabres hockey tonight. Buffalo 5 points out of a playoff spot, trailing the Islanders and the Red Wings. The Islanders, the opponent tonight. We'll have the coverage beginning at 7 here on The Fan. Buffalo Bills bringing back another today. Running back Ty Johnson. Chris Brown on One Bills Live with more.
Johnson, who joined the team last season, provided some juice to the position behind James Cook, offers power and speed, and by season's end, he had supplanted Latavius Murray as the number 2 back on the roster behind Cook.
Former Buffalo Bill quarterback Nate Peterman has a new home. Peterman signing with the New Orleans Saints. ACC tournament, Pitt leading Wake Forest 48-35. They're in the second. Duke hosting NC State tonight. The Wolfpack knocking out SU from NCAA tournament consideration. Gene Battaglia on the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
Completes it to Ty Johnson, the right flat, to the 20, 15, 10, 5, tiptoeing his way to the end zone. Touchdown, Buffalo, Ty Johnson.
So the Bills now back on the board today with Ty Johnson.
Eric Armstead, the defensive tackle. That certainly would be a big boost at that position.
Mike Danger.
They're making it up. They're making it up as they go.
Gene Battaglia.
So my question is, what is next here for the Buffalo Bills? I'm guessing Brandon Beane will do something.
The Amherst hold on, and Devin Levi's 35-save performance, coupled with Riley Stillman getting the game-winning goal, is enough for Rochester.
It's a game day against the New York Islanders. A big game, a big week.
He scored!
Tournament time is almost here.
Selection Sunday.
I'll never leave Syracuse.
So we got Flacco, we got Steven Shenzo, and we got Placido Polanco. Guys, that is a hell of a Final Four, I got to tell you.
Spring training is here.
Pie day, being every day.
Pie.
I want pie.
95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
Okay, so we welcome you back into the Sports Bar. It's Danger and Battaglia. Glad you're with us. Glad you're listening along at 95.7 FM, AM 950. Odyssey app, your smart device. Ask it to play 95.7 The Fan and the stream if you're watching on our YouTube channel at The Fan Rochester. Like, subscribe, comment, and don't forget we're streaming on Twitch as well. We have what may be breaking news, but...
Ow! 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 It really hit me. I didn't know it was coming back that far.
Oh, this is great. We have
conflicting reports.
When do we ever have this?
We have conflicting reports from NFL insiders.
Yes.
So
okay.
Who do we believe?
All right. So the first one, and this is like 5 minutes ago while we're in the break. This is Ian Rappaport. A dark horse emerges. The Jaguars are closing in on a deal to add a huge presence to their defense as they're set to sign former 49er defensive tackle Eric Armstead, sources say. Just 2 minutes ago, Diana Rossini, who's now with The Athletic, reporting former 49er defensive tackle Eric Armstead is signing with the Bills, per sources.
All right, don't tease me.
No, I checked the blue check. Everything is checking out here.
No, I'm talking to the insiders. Which one is it? I mean, don't tease me like this. Armstead to the Bills would be fantastic. Armstead to the Jags... Yeah, I mean, I'm sure they're going to pay him way too much money.
Oh, no. Now Rossini has just put this out. My mistake. My source with the Bills, who was in on Eric Armstead, said done deal, not with Buffalo. Deal is done with the Jaguars. Okay, so Rossini takes the knee on this.
Get out of here. Never liked her anyways. Get it right.
She's a Jersey girl.
Boo! Boo that woman. Boo that NFL insider.
Stop. You should be. Just stop. Don't be so quick on the tweeters.
Be
all
right.
Be right.
Adam Schefter is reporting that we've got a quarterback trade to announce. Man, I wish this was a different set of circumstances, and I wish he was talking about Justin Fields. He's not. The Commanders will be sending Sam Howell to Seattle in a pick swap. So the Seahawks will get Howell. The Seahawks will get a 4th-round pick. and a 6th-round pick, and the Commanders get Seattle's 3rd and 5th.
Which is interesting because just last hour we talked to Andy Behrens, Yahoo Fantasy. We were talking about Justin Fields and talking about teams that should look to the future. And yeah, the Seahawks have Geno Smith, but they've got their eye on the future. I just didn't think that Sam Howell was the future in this league. He just seems like a guy. I don't know if even I would do a pick swap for a guy, but good on the Commanders that they were able to get something. So
well, and it's clear that they also, when they draft their quarterback, they expect that quarterback to be their guy, not Sam Howell, the guy that kind of came in with the old regime.
Right. So, no surprise. I just thought they would just kind of eventually move on. So Washington gets something for Sam Howell at this point. So
let me throw this out there as a team that might still be in the market for a quarterback, because they have a starting quarterback and he played well last year. They got to the postseason, but I think when we watch this quarterback play, we kind of hold our breath thinking he's going to take a hit and turn to dust. He's just going to vaporize. What are the Rams doing behind Matthew Stafford? Right?
Yeah.
I mean, at some point, you have to look to the future if you're the Rams and say, well, we like Stafford this year, but beyond that, we really don't know what we have.
I would expect maybe a 4th, 5th rounder. Like McVay is crazy enough to say, you know what? I like this quarterback, and I'm going to turn him into something. They did that with Puka Nacua at the wide receiver position. Yeah, they're on borrowed time with that quarterback out there with the Rams.
Well, if the Commanders can get a 3rd and a 5th for Sam Howell and a 4th and a 6th, that helps Justin Fields' case some, I think. But right now, the options just seem more and more limited. And Andy just mentioned the Seahawks is one of those teams that maybe hasn't figured it out. And maybe this is a move where they still haven't figured it out. But Justin Fields still in Chicago. And now you got another quarterback with a new team, Sam Howell, heading to Seattle.
So Seattle, remember, they withdrew Locke going to the Giants, which I disagree with that. Giants, what are you doing? You had your guy.
Yeah, of course.
What are you doing?
Yeah, Tommy Cutlets. He should be out there competing for at least a backup role because he's Italian.
When I heard Tyrod went across the hallway over to the Jets, I'm like, well, you know what? That makes sense because Tyrod knows as the backup quarterback, he's not competing with Tommy DeVito.
No, you can't compete with that guy. You want to know why you can't compete with that guy? Because he's Italian, Gino. We'll get back to the Buffalo Sabres here with Joe Yurden. He's going to join us in about 15 minutes.
Well, that was a fun little 2 minutes where I thought Eric Armstead, thanks, Diana, was going to be a Buffalo
Get
Bill.
it right. God. No, I got to be first. No, get it right. Get it right. Rather you be right than first. Anyways, all right, some takes on tap.
WIVB is a story. Actually, this was a story from, I think, Sunday, but since so much was happening, we haven't gotten a chance to talk about that. What is it like to go through the Bills experience?
Now, the Buffalo Bills experience.
What is this? Okay, well, there's a setup in a strip mall in suburban Buffalo. It's not a store you can walk into. Essentially, it's a big old pitch. Now, the first thing you need to know is this. It's invitation only.
Oh.
Like, do they have security there at the front door? Is that, like, I would have to think, yeah, like you're a fan. Like, oh, hey, let's go check that out. No.
Got a guy looking like Big Tom in Philadelphia standing outside the door, ready to
with
turn
the
you away.
in the ear there. Yeah. Well, WIVB is part of this. They wanted to do a story. Okay, but how good can the story be? They were not allowed to take pictures or tell you exactly what the experience is going about.
Okay.
But they did share that this lasts about 90 minutes.
Okay.
90 minutes? Like, what do we need to go over? Where's my seat? How much does it cost? This sounds like a timeshare pitch, Danger. Piece of advice, sidebar. If you're a young couple going on a nice trip for the first time, maybe their honeymoon, never take that bait. Free lunch? No. Credits for free play at a casino? No.
No,
you will regret wasting an afternoon.
Getting pitched on why you should invest in a timeshare at your favorite destination.
Don't do it.
All timeshares are bad, right? I mean,
well, Chuck McDowell will be there. Maybe Chuck McDowell. Hey, have you been in the Bills experience? You know, they won't tell you how long this is going to go, how long it's going to last. I'm Chuck McDowell. Look, the reason why it's 90 minutes, they want to close you, meaning you got to sign at the end of the 90 minutes. Sign on the line that is dotted. By the way, the one thing we did learn, when you do sign electronically, they'll play the shout song at the end.
Oh, that's cute.
Yeah, because they know if you don't sign right there, what will happen. Most normal people, Danger, you, I, most of us, let me think about this. This is a lot of money. No. The PSL that they sneak in, financed over X number of years, you would think twice about it. It's gross.
Because only one thing counts in this life. Get them to sign on the line which is dotted.
If you don't sign, we're going to have Masterstroke over here convincing you that this is a good deal. Hey, say, cuz, you're going to love this. This is great. It's you look at the new seat, the new sight lines. You'll be partially covered in the wintertime. This is going to be a great experience. Go Bills.
So I'm sure it's like buying a car. And I don't know this, but I would envision that you go in and you're going to pick out your seat. And that's also part of this, too. WFVB not allowed to report on pricing.
Yeah.
What kind of business is this? How much is it? Well, if you get the invitation and then, we'll make the payments over this many months.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to finance it over this many months.
It drives me nuts, man. It just drives me crazy. I mean, we're so riddled in debt. So many of us are just over our heads in debt. Our kids are coming out of college over their heads in debt. They're never going to climb out of this hole. And then because you're a Bills fan, you're going to go in there and you're just going to say, yeah, I'm going to add more. Don't do it. Don't add more debt. You're already in over your head. If you don't have it, don't spend it. I don't know. That's me. I don't want to get preachy, and I know people are going to do with their lives what they want to do with their lives, but no way. Unless I have the money set aside or I've saved for it, and maybe some of you have, and that's great if you have, because you knew that the big ask was coming, I wouldn't do it.
But the thing that's funny about the big ask, they really don't want this getting out.
No.
What I would love,
I want somebody who's done it to call us and say, here's the number. Here's what they asked. Here's the price of the PSL.
So what I would do, I'd go in there with like a secret camera. Just like share fellow Buffalo Bills. Here's what it is. But probably you have to sign something right up front that would say you're not allowed to share this.
You have a signed non-disclosure agreement on your way in, and if you break that non-disclosure agreement, Big Dom, who was there at the front door, will chase you down. One of his Goombas will take you out. We don't call it the Bills Mafia for nothing, pal.
The Pagula Mafia.
Luca Brasi sleeps with the fishes. He leaked audio, the PSLs.
This is the real Bills Mafia going after you.
That's right. I'd like to go on the record, and while I can here, pat myself on the back, Gino. I've thought that Aaron Rodgers sucked way since before he was a Sandy Hook denying piece of trash. So what took all y'all so long? And by the way, what's a more useless position, vice president or quarterback of the New York Jets? It's a close one.
Can you do both? Can you have your?
I think you can.
I love the finger waving from Rodgers. We got to cut the crap out and just concentrate on football. Oh,
right. Meanwhile, you have teammates going, "Oh, no wonder he won't return my text messages." He's thinking about a run with Kennedy to be his running mate. What? What world do we live in? This is insane.
So two Rodgers stories came across right toward the end of the show. It was 2 days ago, like around 5:50. I'm like, yeah, Aaron Rodgers, RFK Jr. wants to run for VP. And they're just like, no. I'm like, yeah. And then last night it was about 5:54. There's like a minute left in the show. I'm like, I'm not even bringing this up. Like this idea that there are people on record, in case you missed it, that Aaron Rodgers didn't. No, he's come out and that was a carefully worded statement that was put out today.
He's getting into politics. Yeah. He's going to become a master of carefully worded statements.
Oh my gosh, where you read that and you're thinking, okay, he's denying it, but then you read it again, it's like, well, wait a second. He did leave himself some wiggle room in case audio ever comes up. He's got some people helping him out there. Following your take up on Rodgers, I mean, we've ignored his lunacy. Why? Because he won games. He sold you insurance. Is that the reason why? Look, the CNN report doesn't have the audio, but it has sources. Just like this other source, it says that Rodgers is a 9/11 truther. Now, you think playing in that city, that would get you canceled. Not so much, not yet at least. Again, we're ignoring this. Do you remember the story, Danger? Deshaun Kaiser went on a podcast last year and dropped this. I'm thinking, well, what's next? Like, if he's going to deny Sandy Hook, did he deny 9/11? Oh, he's already done that. The former Brown quarterback went in the Packers locker room, meets Rodgers for the first time, and Rodgers hits him back. Do you believe in 9/11? Kaiser can't get a read on where he's going with this. And then Rodgers, you might want to read up on that a little bit.
Here we go.
Yeah, look, I've been saying this for years. The big, bad New York City media, it's not that at all.
Yeah.
The person who writes the headlines for the New York Post, they can be mean, but the New York media is a bunch of pom-pom waving fools. 9/11 truther. That should be the first question you should ask them. I don't like cancel culture danger. And there's no absolute in life, and he's going to suck on the field this year, and as a result, it's going to be a slow, uneventful cancel here, I predict, for Aaron Rodgers, fading away, and I cannot wait.
Yeah, it won't. The problem is he's going to continue to insert himself into the conversation. I mean, think about this guy, man. He can't get enough of the spotlight. He can't get enough of hearing his own name, of seeing his own image. In a way, politics is perfect for this guy because he'll get to be on stage in front of people all the time.
So do you think
it's the start of a league year, a new league year. Yeah. He is not a part of the conversation. He's with his team. The Jets have him under contract. He's not going anywhere. You've got all these moves happening all over the place. Big name running backs getting signed. Big name wide receivers getting signed. Quarterbacks leaving teams and going to other teams and getting traded. Aaron Rodgers has to make it about him, even though he has nothing to do with what's going on this week in the NFL. He's still got to hear his name out there any way that he possibly can. This guy is an absolute freak, narcissist. He can't help himself. And it won't stop because he's sick. It won't stop.
It'll stop when the losses pile up and he goes away. And it'll become one of these sad afterthoughts.
He's not going to go away. He'll make an excuse for why we all think he's going away. He'll say, I was canceled. He'll say, well, the NFL didn't want me to win. He'll throw more conspiracies at us. And when it happens, maybe not us, but others will. Well, did you see what Aaron Rodgers said today? He believes the NFL is rigged. You should read up on that.
So, doesn't ESPN have a responsibility to their home state? I mean, like, ESPN is based in Connecticut. Like, literally, okay? Literally. There are employees who had kids that went to Sandy Hook. That's how close this... And if you're not familiar, well, ESPN pays the guy in the tank top there.
Oh, McAfee.
Yeah. And then McAfee pays Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
So,
but Rodgers doesn't go on McAfee anymore. He's not on that show anymore.
Well, no, but isn't he going to do it again now?
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, I thought they were just taking a break here with something that was not football season.
Well, here's the thing. I was surprised, actually surprised that ESPN sent out an alert talking about Aaron Rodgers' comments, according to CNN. And that's the other thing. Like, a lot of people are, well, it's according to CNN. Yeah. Can't be real. Go find another angle. Look, it's not even about... The idea that he doesn't believe that exists is terrible. But this is really bigger. This is just Aaron Rodgers seeking validation, looking for attention, wanting to hear his name in the headlines, wanting to make sure that he's getting his attention that he believes he's entitled to, because I don't know what goes on in this guy's head. I don't know what his upbringing was like. There's so many weird things about Aaron Rodgers, his family, and him being estranged from his family, and now this, maybe I'll be a vice president with Bobby Kennedy Jr. Like, you just can't get enough of yourself. He just can't get enough of himself.
Well, I kind of miss the days when, hey, he's romantically linked to Danica Patrick.
That was fun.
Yeah.
That was quaint. That was quaint. Yeah, no, not anymore. Yeah, this guy isn't going to go away because he won't allow it himself to go away. Even if he plays poorly, he won't allow himself to go away.
I just thought that there are certain lines you don't cross. And Sandy Hook and 9/11 would have been two of them. And yet, what do we do?
Well, I don't know, Gene. Maybe you should do some more reading, okay? Maybe you should just read some of the information that's out there. Let's see. We've got Sandy Hook. We've got 9/11. We've got the Rochester Royals. And what are you going to tell me next? That Rochester had an NFL football team?
Yeah, we had a Subway.
What?
Yeah.
Well, the Subway I can see. That's still there. The train cars aren't there.
Okay, you can see the tunnel.
Yeah.
But because I take you over to Edgerton Sports Park and because it's an empty field now, and I say, this was once an NBA arena, you would never believe that.
No, it's an empty field.
You go over to the Blue Cross Arena, it's like, Danger, the 1956 NBA All-Star Game was here. No, it wasn't.
Yeah.
Like, where does it say that around here? I'm like,
do we have pictures?
Yeah.
Was anybody there? Does anybody know? I would love to see that. Anybody can doctor a picture of Wilt Chamberlain holding a sign that says 100. I don't hear any stories from that game. I just see the picture of Wilt holding 100. I don't know that happened.
Because he's such a good sport. We do have one listener, John in Rochester. Yeah, I want to say he's in his 70s. Doesn't look it, by the way.
No, he's a Spartan.
He looks younger than I. Okay,
Yeah.
so but I would ask him. I'd be like, tell Danger that were you ever in a Royals game? Now, if he says no, then
he'd be like, back in my day, popcorn was a shiny nickel. No. Joe Yurden of Bleacher Report.
Again, don't make me laugh.
Noted hockey. Coming up next, we'll talk Sabres. Tonight, they're at home against the Islanders, and an important game this weekend against the Red Wings, as well as their slim playoff hopes have not completely been extinguished. We'll get to that and more. Talk about this team here as they head into an important stretch of games. Buffalo Sabres here. Joe Yurden, Bleacher Report next on the Fan Rochester.
You're listening to the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia. Sports Update.
Sabres hockey tonight. Buffalo 5 points out of the playoff spot. They're trailing Detroit and the New York Islanders, and the Islanders leave point tonight. Coverage will begin at 7 as head coach Don Granato says, watch that top line.
It's obviously three players that command respect, and you have to contend with elite talent, and be aware of that. This league has lots of impressive talent, and when you look at their lineup tonight, you have three guys of that stature on one line. Yes, it demands your attention.
We'll talk to Joe Yerdon coming up next year in the Sports Bar. The Buffalo Bills are bringing back running back Ty Johnson. Former Buffalo Bill quarterback Nathan Peterman today signing with New Orleans. Close one in the ACC tournament. Pittsburgh leading Wake Forest by 4, 65-61 with 4 minutes to go. Gene Battaglia, the sports leader, the Fan, Rochester.
Top Shelf Sports Talk. You're hanging out in the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia on the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
Fearless. They look fearless. Yeah, and that's the difference. I think you harbor fear, and that manifests in hesitation. You identify with how you're going to. You identify with your vulnerabilities, and that's fear. You identify with your strengths, that's confidence. And I think too much of the year, you identified with. I think we're playing much more toward the line of fearless.
There's Sabres head coach Don Granato, big one tonight at KeyBank as the Islanders are in town and the Sabres are chasing slim playoff hopes. But the light hasn't been extinguished entirely, and they have been playing a better brand of hockey. And to talk about it, Joe Yerdon from Bleacher Report and Noted Hockey joins us now in the Sports Bar. Joe, before we talk about the team that's been on a bit of a run here over the course of the last 10, 11 games, update us on what the win against Detroit earlier this week meant and what a win tonight for the Islanders could mean for the Sabres, albeit slim chances of making the postseason.
Yeah, they're in a much more interesting position now. Beating Detroit got them to within 5. Detroit's in their own little funk right now. They've lost 6 in a row and looking terrible while doing it. But the Islanders are hot. They've won 6 in a row, I believe. So they've gotten themselves into the playoff race by getting hot at the right time of year. But Buffalo's they're in the stalking position right now because they're playing well. They're doing very well, and this is a big week. I mean, if they can beat the Islanders tonight, and if they can go to Detroit on Saturday afternoon and beat Detroit again, they're right there. And I mean, there's a lot of teams that are also right there. Let's not get it confused, but there's a lot of teams in that mix are not playing very well, but the Sabres are one of them that are, and so that's we're in a much different spot than we thought this team was going to be in about a month ago.
Yeah, what's been the difference here, Joe? Because the Vegas win, you had that exciting win over Edmonton, certainly piling on. And yes, Detroit has their issues, but this was the Sabre team a lot of us were expecting for the most part this year, and it's only arriving here in March. So what's been kind of the reasons why you could point to for the change here?
Well, it's different layers of confidence. It starts with Luukkonen. Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen has been incredible since taking over the number 1 job, and they're riding him. He's the hot hand. He's one of the hottest hands in the league right now. He's been outstanding for a few months now, and if it weren't for the first half of the year and things being all kind of scuffed, you could probably make a case for Luukkonen to be in the Vezina talk, but he's playing extremely well. And when you know your goalie's going to make the saves, and you know he's going to make some of the saves that maybe he shouldn't be making, you feel a lot better about your defense. And the team is playing better defense themselves. Don Granato talks a bit about that today, about how their way of playing defense is more instinctual now, as opposed to thinking about it and harping on their own mistakes and kind of getting lost on the ice at times. They know where they're supposed to be. They know what they're supposed to be doing, and they're taking care of that. And because of that, it's allowing them to play offensively a lot closer to what they were doing last year, playing with speed, playing with pace, attacking teams, driving the middle lane, doing all those things that they just weren't doing in the first half of the year for X, Y, Z reasons. So it took them about 60 games, but it's finally starting to come together a bit here because this is looking a lot more like the team I think a lot of us thought we were going to see for a better part of the year.
I know it's a real small sample, and I know it's not sustainable, but man, given the opportunity to play on a top pairing, the new acquisition in Bowen Byram sure looks at home with the Buffalo Sabres. Talk a little bit about his stretch here since joining the team.
Yeah, he's a fascinating player because he comes over from Colorado and he won a Stanley Cup when he was 20 years old, I think he was in 2022, which is wild. I mean, that's just nutty to be able to be to be a key part of a Stanley Cup winning team at that age. But when you've got Cale Makar and you've got Devon Taves as your top deep pairing, you're probably not going to get a lot of those prime assignments. And for whatever reason, he wasn't getting those in Colorado for a better part of the year. I think, Jack Johnson was his partner for a lot of the season. Sam Girard was too, Josh Manson. Like, they were just trying to find a place for him, and nothing was working. He comes here, and he's got a high pedigree. And, he's had injury issues over the years, whatever. He's past that now. And putting him with Dahlin now puts Dahlin on the right side more often than not. And he thrives on the right side. I know it's weird for a lefty shot to do that, but he does. You go back to his draft year; he played a lot on the right side in Sweden, and boy, there's a reason why he was the number one consensus guy to be picked that year. So Byram allows to do that, and he attacks the game like mad. He reminds me a bit of Dahlin early on in his career, except Bowen Byram's a lot more responsible on the defensive end at this age now. He's a very special player, and someone I spoke with after the trade came down, they texted me and they said this could be a franchise altering trade in the good for Buffalo because you give up Middlestat, and yeah, he's great. He's a great player, but Byram changes the entire conversation on the defense because you went from who's going to play with Dahlin, who's going to play with Power, being like, oh, now we've got three absolute dynamite defensemen, and Samuelson's in there, Yoki Haru's in there. You're looking at a defensive core that is going to be nasty for years to come.
Sabres and Islanders, our coverage will begin at 7 tonight. Our friend Joe Yurden, noted hockey, Bleacher Report, also part of the Maintenance Day podcast. Joe, the Kyle Opozo trade, I viewed that kind of as a favor. Hey, you go. This is your last year. You go have a chance to win a cup here. But I guess my question is, it's not too often you see a team captain kind of get shipped out. So where did the Sabres go from here? And could this have actually been, it sounds like a slam, but really it is an addition by subtraction, meaning, hey, the team captain isn't here. Everybody else has to kind of pick up the slack in some sort of way. Who do you see being the future captain of this team?
Well, to answer that question, I think it's going to be Dahlin. Dahlin exhibits all the earmarks of what a captain does on the ice. I mean, he leads by example out there. I mean, he takes charge of situations. He's the guy kind of mixing it up, guy throwing his body around, getting back at opponents that may have wronged somebody or him out on the ice. He takes care of that kind of business.
Is he too emotional at times, though, Joe? I've seen moments this year where Dahlin gets frustrated on the ice because of his own play. Does he have that maturity to kind of keep that suppressed while he's on the ice and not let his opponent know that they're getting the better of him?
I know what you're saying, and I get what you mean. But I think that kind of leadership is something this team's kind of needed, honestly. Like somebody to play fiery. Now, you don't want reckless penalties, obviously. You don't want any of that kind of stuff. But I mean, he's a ferocious competitor. I mean, I've never, over the years, you don't usually see a guy get like mad for making mistakes in practice and slamming his stick or missing an opportunity to score in practice or something like that, and just kind of get really mad about it. He does, and he's just like it's not prima donna stuff. It's just he wants to win everything. He wants to do it all. He wants to win everything, and he's just a manic competitor. He's just. I see him being the guy that everybody's going to look to in that room and say, okay, Raz is doing this. We're doing this too. We're in with you. He exudes a lot of those leadership qualities. Now, granted, he's still very young, but at 20, he's going to be 23, 24. That's crazy under himself. But he's older than what Jack was when they named him captain. Granted, probably maybe shouldn't have named him captain that young, but he's grown up quite a bit in his time here, and he's going to be here for years to come. And he's the guy. To me, he's the guy. And you trade away a Pozo, and he was like the team dad. Honestly, I mean, he was the guy everybody looked to. He provided the guidance, he provided the leadership, the mentorship, all that stuff. But the effort on the ice was great. Everything about him was good. But you take away that older guy, now it's everybody else in the room's got to look at each other and go, okay, it's on us. Let's do this. And it lets you look inward a little bit, and it also kind of brings everybody else together to just say, like, all right, Cap's gone. Let's go take care of business.
Joe, what are you seeing as far as how Don Granato has kind of mixed things up here with the lines? Because it hasn't been static here down this last stretch of games where the Sabres have had some success. Are you seeing a higher level of play from some players, given that they might be shuffled around a little bit in the lineup here?
What I see is. I know people get frustrated. They get really frustrated when Don messes with the lines, but he seems to get it right a lot. Like a lot of the time, he seems to nail it down. Everybody was all kinds of bent out of shape about Zemgus not being traded at the deadline, and the first game after the deadline passes, he's on the first line with Thompson and Tuck, and everybody's like, "What's going on?" He's the hardest forechecker on the team. He's the guy that mixes it up. He's the guy that goes to the net all the time. Look at what he's done to be able to kind of loosen things up for Thompson and Tuck. And those guys have been playing very well the last few weeks now. Like they're feeling a lot better. They're playing good. Tuck's been fantastic. But Zemgus creates a lot of that stuff. And it's just by him playing the way he always does. And I think when you've got a guy that plays that kind of reliable style, it allows your creative guys to know where he's going to be, A, and B, know how to work around him too. And you see that with Greenway, with Cousins and Benson. I think that trio's been fantastic. I mean, they play like what's the old Phil Housley line? Like a dog on a bone. Like they're just on it all the time. And you kind of see that sort of mix going all the way through. And the fourth line. I mean, you got a lot of guys. You got a few guys there that are out to prove something. Jost and Olofsson especially, and Eric Robinson as well. I mean, those guys are going 100 miles an hour. Obviously, you want to see Krebs and Peterka and Skinner, kind of pick their pace up a little bit. But when they explode, they're awesome. They are very fun and creative to watch. So I don't know. It's wild to look at the lines and go like, I don't know if this works. But then you watch it happen and you're like, all right, I think I get it now. And I think that's kind of what we're seeing.
Game tonight, big one for the Sabres, obviously, chasing a team in the standings. Joe, the question is, like, who of these teams right now do you see as, like, the real threat? And I think we can say, Detroit, I don't know. They've lost 6 in a row, as you mentioned. They have teammates fighting in practice. Maybe you can stretch it and say the Devils, who have a game in hand, even though they're a point behind. Washington, I'm not considering. It's got to be the Islanders, right? But then when I say that, I look at the standings. This is what's messed up here, Danger. The Sabres actually have 2 more wins than the Islanders. It's 14 loser points that the Islanders have picked up over the course of the season.
The frauds.
Yeah. Like Joe, paint a picture here of the playoff race for us.
My favorite part of breaking this down, and I did a little bit of this with on Bleacher Report today, kind of doing some postseason predictions, which I didn't put the Sabres in the postseason. Everybody can boo me. I get it. The road's very hard, but the regulation wins. If you look at that column on the standings board with NHL.com, and you look at who's winning their games in 60 minutes, Sabres have done pretty well at that. And if there's a thing the Sabres have been bad at this year, it's getting to overtime. But you've got teams like the Islanders, the Bruins. The Bruins have been to overtime a zillion times this year. Now, granted, they're very good, but they've had 15 loser points. I mean, I can't imagine having a team that good and losing 15 times in overtime in the shootout and still being one of the best teams in the East. But them and Toronto and Washington to a degree, like these teams are you look at it and say, oh, they're doing really well, but I don't know. Like it's one of those things where if you handicap the playoffs and you're like, if they get in, they're gonna get bombed out. They're gonna get swept out pretty quick because they can't hang in regulation and win those games. Then Buffalo's been able to do that for when they have won games, and that's good. Now, granted, they've been able to kind of get back into this thing because they have been able to drag a few games to overtime and get steal a point here or there. But they're winning in overtime. They're winning in shootouts. So that's helped them. But I mean, I don't know. The fact that they're able to take care of business and not allow opponents to get points on them is good, but the flip side of that is that if they're not getting any points, it's that if they're not getting overtime, they're coming up empty. So it's all or none for them, and I don't know. It's very hard to handicap this because you get the feeling like it's like back in the day when teams were just they get to overtime and they're like, all right, nobody's risk anything. Let's just get a tie. Both teams get a point. Let's just go on. Now it's game's close late and you're like, I don't want to cost us 2 points. Let's just kind of ease into this and make sure we can get one at least, and then figure it out from there. That kind of stuff drives me nuts. Please give me the 3-2-1 point system, please, please. Yeah. Please, can we do that? God.
Joe, I've been saying all season long through the Sabres inconsistencies that if you only dine on a steady diet of Buffalo Sabres hockey and then you force yourself to watch another game in the NHL, it's sometimes like watching another sport because competitive teams just play a different style than the Sabres have been playing, or at least it looked like it to your eyes. There's a speed, there's a movement. And I hadn't really seen it out of the Sabres until Tuesday night. So I guess my question is, knowing that this is in them, was that more about the Sabres or was that more about Detroit being what Detroit is right now?
I think it's both, honestly, because, you look at some of these other games. Look at the Edmonton game. I mean, that's a team that should be, the talent level and all that. That's a team that should be, kind of boat racing, based on what the Sabres have done all season. You're thinking, these guys are going to blow their doors off today.
Yeah.
Didn't happen. And, they were able to hang with them punch for punch and played extremely well. And they've been able to do that a lot lately. I kind of toss out that Toronto game because both teams were awful. It was one of the worst games I watched all season. But I think that was one where both teams were just kind of like, all right, we're not gonna get into a track meet today. Let's just kind of D it up. But Don kind of explained it a little bit today. Everything that they've been working on this season, the defensive responsibility and trying to play with pace, all these things. He said this is all part of the process. Now, he didn't say anything about trusting the process, like none of that stuff. Like keep that phrase out of action because it's a jinx. But he said, with a group this young, and you look at everything that they've had to get together, and they've had to learn along the way, learning how to win games, learning how to to trust their defense, learning how to trust the goaltending, all that stuff. It's taken them to now to get to that point, and playing with confidence, trusting each other, doing all that stuff. I know it sounds like all coach buzzword stuff, but this is more like what they should be doing. This is more the way they should be playing. And man, oh man, it's one of those things where you're just kind of like, where has this been all year? But they kind of had to learn it to get to that point. They started the season thinking like, okay, well, we're just gonna outscore everybody and do it that way, and that's not good. They showed that last year. That's not. It'll win you some games. It'll win you a lot of games, but not enough to get you to the postseason. Now you have to round out everything, and now they've got the defensive side down, and they know they can score. They know they can, and now we're seeing that all come together.
Joe Yerdon from Bleacher Report, our guest here in the Sports Bar. Last one from me, Joe. And, boy, the Amherst coming up nicely, a team that they've had some issues with, Syracuse. And just your thoughts here as we're down to 14 games left in the Amherst season. And they're kind of hanging on to that third spot right now, which I think would be really nice if they can kind of avoid that play-in round. But you look at what's behind them, and Belleville by 1 point, Toronto only by 2 points. You got the home and home coming up with the Marlies this week. Kind of assess what you're seeing out of the Amherst so far. And also, Devin Levi, playing pretty well here for the Amherst and taking this assignment.
Yeah, Levi's done very well there, and it's really good to see that because I think the big worry everybody had was that having him go to Rochester was it going to be one of those kinds of things where he's going to kind of sulk on it? Was he going to struggle for a while? Was he going to be kind of bitter about things? Whatever. whatever the case. We've seen that happen with lots of guys when they go down, they just kind of chew on it for a while, and you're like, what the heck's going on here? He hasn't done that. He's played very well. I think there's another level to come from their young guys, from Rosén and Kulich. I think there's another jump to come from them late in the season. They've been fighting it for a while now. You want to see them kind of get it back there, and we saw it a bit late in the season last year where a bulb kind of went off and they both started really kicking it into gear. It's a little different this year because now teams are preparing for them, and that's part of the test for them. But we're seeing a lot of the depth players playing extremely well. Mason Yops has been incredible. I'm so happy to see that guy do so well there. And Brett Murray's been hanging around the net, doing his job there, being big. We see Kali Shaline jump right into the mix there, and he's looks pretty good there for his first couple of games with a new team, so that's nice. They really needed some defensive depth help there, so that's great. But you got Ryan Johnson there now. I think that's a huge help for the defense because he should be playing 20 minutes a night, all situations. Let's see what he's got, but it's going to be a fight. It's going to be a battle, and they've got the players to be able to hang with the hard veterans of the AHL, but they've also got that high talent right there. With some of these guys, we see Neuchev's look pretty good lately now too. So I want to see some of those guys maybe get a little bit of a boost here and pick things up for them so they can get into the playoffs and maybe get hot again, maybe get on a run.
You know what, Gino? Talking to Joe this afternoon is exactly what my soul needed. You could have been down about this team, this organization all season long, but I actually I'm excited for tonight. I'm excited for what's ahead for the Amerks. And Joe, I know that for the Sabres that the chances are slim and that they probably aren't a postseason team. But it's exciting to know that not only are they performing at a higher level right now, but the guys that are underneath them, the guys here in Rochester that we know will in the future be contributing to the success in Buffalo, are performing at a pretty good level as well. You turned my mind around on this organization here during the course of our conversation, Joe. I appreciate you.
It's funny what some wins can do to kind of change the temperament for everybody.
Yeah.
The win one, lose two, way of life has got everybody really sore about things. But it's getting results and then also playing fun again. That's all part of the excitement. I get it. The odds of going to the playoffs are about the same as them getting Macklin Celebrini in the lottery. Fine, whatever. But they're winning, so take it and run.
Joe, what can we read here, and when is the next pod drop? What can our listeners check out here?
Well, I think the next pod's going to drop next week. I got to make sure to get on point with Lance. Lance is going to to Western Canada with the team next week, so we got to figure out a time to schedule. But lots of Bleacher Report going on there. Like I said, I got a piece up today about playoff predictions. Again, sorry for not picking the Sabres. And at Noted Hockey, lots of Sabres talk there. Game stuff. Got a couple other features I'm cooking up here too. So lots to read there. And subscribe if you can. That'd be great.
Joe, appreciate your time as always, buddy. See you around soon.
Hey, you got it, guys. Thanks so much.
There is Joe Yerdon. You can read his stuff at Noted Hockey, Bleacher Report, and he's a great follow on X if you're following the Sabres or the Amerks, at Joe Yerdon.
Let me say what 10 p.m. tonight is going to be on Sabres Twitter. There's no middle ground. Either I knew it all along. Oh, at least we don't have to worry. Or everybody will be all bought in and excited about the destination because next up on the schedule, game at Detroit. So theoretically, Danger, by the time Sunday evening comes around, that's an afternoon game in Detroit. Like Saturday Saturday evening, you could actually be only 3 points out of a spot.
Right. And it's not easy. The schedule is a little daunting here down the stretch, but you do have some games against opponents that you're chasing that you can make up some ground and at least make it interesting. And by make it interesting, I'm just saying, if you play the way you played against Detroit for the rest of the season, I think a lot of us would be like, okay, and it's what we said when we were down. It's like they'll play just good enough to give us enough hope and optimism through the offseason to have us excited about what next season looks like. And, then you hope that next season doesn't go the way this season did. But at least some of that has, and winning is the ultimate deodorant. Joe's right. I mean, you win a few games, you go 7-3-1 in your last 11, and the cries for Fire Donnie get a little bit more muted. Happy hour is on the way next in the sports bar. We've got time for your calls if you want to join us at 866-4326. And we want to extend an invite to you for you to join us a week from today. The NCAA tournament gets underway, opening day of the tournament, and we will be live at the tap room at Bill Gray's in the Chilai Avenue location.
Yeah, come on down. You know, it is like we love when we go out on the road. And actually, Danger, this is the first time in a few years we've been out for March, for the opening day of the tournament. So games begin at noon. Our show begins at 3. You guys can come down, gals. We'll be there before and after.
Play hooky. I mean, everybody thinks they want to do it. Just do it if you don't. I mean, a lot of people will. I have friends who will take the day and Friday off. We're just going to watch all day. We're going to drink beers. We're going to be absolute. I mean, when I look at this menu, I'm like, oh, yeah. Get me the fried pickles. Give me the jalapeno poppers. Get me a cold one with the basketball.
You get the great plate. You can get all
There's
that sort of stuff. Yeah.
Nothing sounds better for the start of the tournament. So we'll be doing that live starting at 3 o'clock a week from today. The tap room at Bill Gray's Chilai Avenue location. We welcome you out and invite you to join us on Thursday in the sports bar with Danger and Battaglia. Happy hour next.
9BF Rochester, the sports leader. 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
Always live on the free Odyssey app.
The Fan, Rochester. Sports update.
It's meaningful hockey in the month of March for the Buffalo Sabres. Tonight, hosting the Islanders. It's one of the two teams they're chasing in the standings. 5 points out of a playoff spot. The Sabres entering tonight. Our coverage will begin at 7 here on The Fan. Buffalo Bills bringing back another player today. He's running back Ty Johnson. Chris Brown today on One Bills Live with more.
Johnson, who joined the team last season, provided some juice to the position behind James Cook, offers power and speed, and by season's end, he had supplanted Latavius Murray as the number 2 back on the roster behind Cook.
Former Buffalo Bills quarterback Nathan Peterman today signing with New Orleans. Eric Armstead, defensive tackle, going to Jacksonville today. ACC tournament Pitt over Wake Forest 81-69. Top seed North Carolina hammering Florida State 92-67. Duke takes on NC State tonight. Gene Battaglia, the sports leader, The Fan, Rochester.
Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
Completes it to Ty Johnson, the right flat, to the 20, 15, 10, 5, tiptoeing his way to the end zone. Touchdown, Buffalo, Ty Johnson.
So the Bills now back on the board today with Ty Johnson.
Eric Armstead, the defensive tackle. That certainly would be a big boost at that position.
Mike Danger.
They're making it up. They're making it up as they go.
Gene Battaglia.
So my question is, what is next here for the Buffalo Bills? I'm guessing Brandon Beane will do something.
The Amherst hold on, and Devin Levi's 35-save performance, coupled with Riley Stillman getting the game-winning goal, is enough for Rochester.
It's a game day against the New York Islanders. A big game, a big week.
He scored!
Tournament time is almost here.
Selection Sunday.
I'll never leave Syracuse.
So we got Flacco, we got DiVincenzo, and we got Placido Polanco. Guys, that is a hell of a Final Four, I got to tell you.
Spring training is here.
Pie Day, being every day.
Pie.
I want pie.
95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
Yeah, riding that sugar buzz wave through the afternoon here. It's happy hour in the sports bar. We appreciate you joining us on Pie Day. However you may be listening, if you're local at 95.7 FM, AM 950, the free-to-download Odyssey app, your smart device. When you ask it to play 95.7 The Fan, our video stream is up. You can like, subscribe, follow along to our YouTube channel at The Fan Rochester. Don't forget to comment while you're there. Also streaming on Twitch. I'm Danger. That's Battaglia.
So get your flow chart out ready here, Danger.
Oh, good.
Free agency flow chart.
The free agency flow chart concocted by our buddy Jeremy White from WGR in Buffalo. Really two options here. Free agent signs with your team, then the outcome is love the move. Free agent signs with opposing team, then the outcome is too much money.
Before I tell you what Eric Armstead signed for today, if you missed it earlier today, it was around 4:05. We're like, wait a second. You never have this with NFL insiders. You had conflicting reports about Eric Armstead. Ian Rappaport, he's going to Jacksonville, the Niners defensive tackle. And this was a player that we're like, wait a second. The Bills were in on this. Diana Rossini reporting he's headed to Buffalo. Whoa.
Yeah. Wow, that's big.
Whoa.
This is a big-time player. This is a guy that's 30 years old, defensive tackle, was set to make, what was it, $17.5 million this year or something like that, and he didn't want to take a pay cut with the Niners, so they release him, and then you got to think, if you're Brandon Beane, the bat light is going off, like, oh, good player that we can get at a discount price? Let's be in on that. It makes a lot of sense, and I mean, everything in my feed today was talking about how great Eric Armstead would be at the Buffalo Bills. We looked over the tape. This tape is fantastic. He would be a perfect fit for what the Bills do defensively. And then Rossini sends out the report that turns out to not be a true report. And damn it. Okay.
Now, everybody liked him on the tape, Daner, but would you like him to the tune of 3 years, $51 million?
No, too much money. Just way too much money. I feel like his skills have diminished here over the course of the last 2 years. I have no idea what Jacksonville is thinking. What are they doing? 3 years, $51 million for that bum? Nah. What does that average out to?
That would be 17, exactly what he was due to make in San Francisco. Now, again, it could be incentive based. We really don't know, but if he were to stay the 3 years, that's what he's making.
Well, I believe he's still a nice player. And that's why as soon as he got released, we started talking about him the moment he was out there all week long during legal tampering. Every insider that we had, I think we asked them about Eric Armstead and the Buffalo Bills because you brought back Daquan Jones, and we all like Daquan Jones. Daquan Jones a couple years older than Eric Armstead, and you could argue Eric Armstead might just still be a better player overall than Daquan Jones, but Daquan Jones is who the Bills bring back, which I guess helps them in terms of their compensatory draft pick formula, if that's something that they prioritize.
They still need bodies. They need somebody else on the defensive tackle position. And again, if we get to April and we're still here, and again, the disclaimer here, hey, the Bills brought in Leonard Floyd in June. I get that. There's going to be somebody that could, especially when the Trey White money comes free, you could always go after. But the point being here that, again, brace for a non-wide receiver in round one, in particular if they think there's somebody that can help out the defensive line this year.
We had a great conversation earlier today. Great football conversation with one of our favorites, Andy Behrens from Yahoo Fantasy. It was good with his time to join us in the 3 o'clock hour with all of the free agent signings, all of the moves. The plate tectonics of fantasy football have changed, and Andy was great to provide us with some insight on that. And I loved our conversation with Joe Yurden so much so that it actually has me in a good mood. Like I'm kind of excited to watch tonight's game between the Sabres and the Islanders, just because, well, Joe's laying out all the reasons why this team is playing a different brand of hockey here down the stretch. And I know that the playoff chances are still very slim, and it's not likely that they're a postseason team. But at minimum, it's a fun product. It's been fun to watch.
Well, again, like as soon as they figure it out, okay, we can kind of score here in the formula, your leading score. It's like when we thought, wait a second, you're trading away Casey Middlestad, and this is the problem with the team. Well, no, the guy you got in return, Bo Byram, kind of buried on that. He was the number 4 overall pick in Colorado and comes over, and again, it's such a small sample size. But you're pointing out that it starts with really UPL. And the Sabre defense since January 1st is actually 3rd best in the league. So just like last year and many years before it, the Sabres digging this big old hole that ultimately, let's be honest, I'm going to stick to it. Am I taking the 3% chance or the 97% chance? I'm going to take the 97% chance.
Okay, well, what if the 3 becomes 5 after tonight?
I'm still going to take the 95% chance.
Okay.
But I'm going to tell you that on social media tonight, following a win, everybody thinks that's going to be a 50% chance. And following a loss, everyone will hate this team. How did I buy back in? So there's not going to be any middle ground with the Buffalo Sabres come 10 o'clock tonight.
Championship week action, and we've gone this far without mentioning that disgusting second half performance by Syracuse last night in the ACC.
We don't have to debate. Are they in? No, they're not in. No,
they'll get an NIT invite.
Well, that's if they want to go. There's like a weird thing here, Danger. Now, you would think that you would want your program, but because of the portal and because now you got to appease to your players and you're asking them to do more work here for. It's not even a consolation prize, honestly. The NIT is...
it's more basketball.
Yeah, it's just indications that Syracuse would kind of accept it, and as they should. As they should. So, okay, yay, NIT. You would figure they would get in with the 21 wins, but what is it, 1 quarter run? There's no chance. 0.
No, they're not getting into the tournament. So we'll have... we'll be talking a lot of brackets next week, starting on Monday after Selection Sunday. We'll have Selection Sunday content for you here Sunday night on The Fan. We want you to win your bracket.
Yeah, like Danger and I, let's be honest, we're like you. Okay, we watch a little college basketball. I can't tell you which team is long and has the shooting from the outside. That's where we're going to invite in experts.
I feel like there's a handful of teams in the Big 12. Baylor and Houston come to mind, where I think the average age of their starting lineup is like 28. Like they're dudes that are playing college basketball that are just way beyond their prime, that are really taking advantage of their eligibility and playing college basketball as long as they can. Those teams, in my opinion, may have an advantage, but we'll see.
Yeah, and it looks like Purdue's going to be a 1 seed again. Do you actually trust the Boilermakers? They bow out every year. Big East teams, they like UConn coming up as a 4 seed last year.
Well, I as somebody who invested in them, I was just very happy to see that Gonzaga didn't have to wait. I didn't have to wait until the tournament for Gonzaga to disappoint me after I thought they would beat St. Mary's. in their tournament. No, they lose to St. Mary's.
Yeah, so now maybe it'll work in a bizarre way where Gonzaga now will go deep. If you were with us yesterday for our guy PJ Glasser, who was at the ACC tournament, by the way, which that's always kind of cool when you're talking to somebody in a place that I'm kind of jealous. I wish I were, kind of watching that. Yeah, I asked him, okay, who would be this year's Florida Atlantic? He had the answer. Florida Atlantic was 31-3 last year, went in as a 9 seed. They went in as a 9 seed.
Give me a second, Gino. I lost a little off the fastball.
9 times.
Go ahead.
And they made it to the Final Four. Who would be that version this year? He says James Madison, who is also 31-3 entering the tournament.
So we'll see if they end up being a 9 seed.
9 times.
Okay. James Madison is this year's Florida. What was it? Florida Gulf Coast?
Florida Atlantic.
Florida Atlantic. See,
Florida Gulf Coast, I think, were they the team that beat Georgetown the one year as a 15?
There was one year where I feel like Florida Gulf Coast went on a run. That's something that we always forget, right? Like you forget about George Mason or VCU. Like VCU got Shaka Smart a lot of coaching gigs.
I remember the year finally a 16 beat a 1 where Virginia
Tony Bennett
lost and Tony Bennett. And then the following year around this time, we had the great Jay Moore in our studio.
Yeah.
He's doing a Tony Bennett impression.
The best. The absolute best. Hey, everybody. Yeah, he's singing.
Gotta hit those free throws.
Yeah, he's just so great. So we'll have plenty of tournament action to dissect and discuss. And when the tournament actually does get underway next week, we invite you to join us as we'll be doing the show live for the opening day of the tournament, the Tap Room, Bill Gray's Chili Avenue location. That starts at 3 o'clock that Thursday afternoon, a week from this afternoon. Can't wait to try some of the expanded menu items that they have there. And also, it's the Tap Room. So
yeah, so basically the genesis is, I'm going to admit, I'm kind of jealous that CMF got to go out there for football season.
Oh,
you had Duffy and Tommy and Kimmy going around, and
don't forget about me. I spent my New Year's Eve.
You did the one
at Seabreeze, pal.
Yeah.
That's right. Had a good time.
So I went out to the one in Chili for the Charger game. It was packed there that night. So yeah, I can only imagine what it's going to be. So make plans on Thursday, whether that's coming out right at tip at noon or coming out for the show from 3 to 6, maybe coming back and having a cold one before you hit home.
We can share a cold one and maybe a win or two.
Can't wait for the tournament opening day. That's a week from today. We'll be live, the Tap Room at Bill Gray's Chili Avenue location. We invite you to join us in the sports bar.
Ty Johnson's back. It's a 1 year deal. Look, I thought he did a okay job last year.
He's fine.
Yeah.
He's fine. Whatever. He's fine. These are the kind of moves that's not a surprise. Of course they're bringing back Ty Johnson. Yeah.
Well, because then if you let Ty Johnson kind of sit out there till June and you bring in some other running back, compensatory formula.
That's right. They'd rather sign their own guys back. And Johnson was one of those guys who kind of, look, good for Johnson. He started his career in Detroit. Spent some time in with the Jets, yeah. Right? And now, looks like he's found a nice landing spot behind James Cook here in Buffalo. And maybe that signing doesn't mean that the Bills aren't going to be interested in a running back, I would imagine, late in the draft. Or maybe you're going to bring in undrafted guys to compete at training camp. There's always one guy that, Blackshear, by the way, was the guy that I remember from a couple of years ago. He went to Carolina. They plucked him off the Bills practice squad. And he either got released or he got signed by the Panthers. I know I saw his name cross my feed during the free agency frenzy here over the last couple of days. I'm like, oh, he's still out there, Blackshear. The training camp superhero, preseason superhero.
Where's Christian Wade these days, I wonder?
Yeah, everybody loves him some Christian Wade.
Even 25 years from now, we'll be talking about Christian Wade.
Yeah, that one play in the preseason, Christian Wade. My favorite was people thinking that Christian Wade should have been starting games in the NFL. That was fun.
My favorite was the one time you did the sit down with Christian Wade. He was so new at football. He had trouble getting his gear off, and you're helping sweaty Christian Wade get his shoulder pads.
Yeah, had to help him out. He was struggling, man. Let me give you a hand there, buddy. You need a hand? Yeah, I need a hand. Okay, let's get those shoulder pads off. I mean, you see that all the time. Teammates help each other out. They carry their pads, or they, I felt like I was part of the team for a second there, Gino. The Bills also proposed a bylaw change. Not necessarily a game rule change. This is something that'll get discussed when the owners get together later this month in Orlando for the quarterly meetings. The rules for having an emergency quarterback. So last season, you could have that emergency third quarterback, but he counted as somebody that you would need on the 53-player roster. He could be a game day inactive, but you need to he had to be part of the 53-player roster. The Bills' proposed bylaw, I guess, allows most, if not all, teams to carry only 2 quarterbacks on their active roster, have that third quarterback on the practice squad, but available to them on a game day if those first 2 quarterbacks get injured.
How much do practice squad players make?
I don't know.
How much? Well, much less than somebody on an active 53. So really, that's what this is about. You don't have to pay a third quarterback.
Hold on a second. Are you saying that they're making moves based on money?
This would be, I would think, unanimously voted by the owners here. And I would think if you're the Players Association, like, wait a second.
Yeah.
Whoa.
This is one they can kind of slide underneath.
Yeah.
Slide in there without the players knowing about.
Yeah, like Terry will get high fives all around. Like, hey, that's a good one, bud. Like, yeah, let's keep that quarterback.
There's another little story that's bubbling under here through free agency in the NFL, and I don't know that anything is going to come of it, but maybe something should. Atlanta, did they tamper with Kirk Cousins?
Of course they did.
Okay. Well, the Kirk Cousins introductory press conference was an interesting one where he kind of let it slip that he had been meeting with the team prior to the legal tampering window. Now, agents can meet, right? Like, agents can meet with owners at the NFL Combine, and you can have conversations that become more public during the legal tampering window.
Right, but even during legal tampering, technically a player can't even talk on Monday and Tuesday. You can just kind of work through your representation, but I mean, it's not a surprise. Like, when the Cousins go to Atlanta, okay, credit Florio, you take the victory lap. And, like, this was kind of projected a few...
Well, it's one thing for a player to be looking for a home in Atlanta. It's another thing for the player to be looking for a home in Atlanta and then meeting with the head athletic trainer while you're there before the league year gets underway. That is tampering, is it not?
Of course it is. But every team does this. So, I mean, are the Vikings going to make a point of it? Same thing with the Giants. I mean, you could say Vikings and Falcons, okay, they're in the NFC. The Giants are the same division as the Eagles. And the Eagles plucked away Saquon Barkley. Now, Giants technically, reportedly, didn't even make an offer to Saquon. However, you had James Franklin telling people weeks ago, hey, like, Howie Roseman talked to me, and like, and Saquon says he wants to become an Eagle. So that wasn't a surprise if you were a Penn State fan.
All right, but that's different, right? That's Howie Roseman doing his homework on the player, reaching out to the coach, asking the coach about Saquon Barkley. And even if he said to James Franklin, hey, do me a favor, gauge the interest.
The other part of that is that Franklin says that Barkley had met with the Eagles at that point.
Okay.
So that's why you see the Giants kind of saying, hey, are they going to go after tampering charges for the Eagles?
Well, I know that a lot of it happens, and it's something that is commonplace, but it's also something that we've seen teams get penalized for. And if I'm the Vikings and you're in the NFC and you might see the Falcons at some point here in the postseason, you're hoping that that's the case. Why not penalize a conference opponent for tampering with the guy that you really wanted to get back on your own terms? There's no way Kirk Cousins was going to get paid what Atlanta's paying him in Minnesota. There's just no way the Vikings were going to do that to him. So we'll see. We'll see if anything comes of it. Maybe nothing comes of it. But what we know about the NFL is that tampering does happen. It happens a lot. And Kirk Cousins was a little bit loose with just how much he may have been tampered with prior to the league year getting underway.
Yeah, the other point, too, is, talking to our friend of the show, Mo from Havana Mo's.
That's our guy.
Like, the NFL, these owners, their objective is to make money.
Mm-hmm.
Baseball goes over the cap all the time. Now, they allow you to do that, but you pay the tax. Well, technically, there's a tax, too, in the NFL. If you go over the cap, it's a $5 million fine.
Oh, is that what it is? $5 million if you're not cap compliant?
Well, if you're Dallas owner Jerry Jones and you want to be, finger quote, all in, he's taking a lot of rezzing. Like, you could technically go all out and pay a bunch of fines there, maybe give up some future draft picks, but ultimately, when these 32 men get together once a quarter for the NFL owners meetings, they're getting behind closed doors, it's ultimately to remind one another we are here to make money and nobody step out of line. In baseball, you have a Steve Cohen that spends recklessly, I will admit.
Yeah. Spends recklessly, offers the world, and still can't get some of the top free agents to come play for him in New York. That's tough. That is funny. $5 million is a drop in the bucket for these billionaire NFL owners. So you're right. If they really wanted it, the salary cap they could obliterate the salary cap, but nobody's going to do that because if one does it, then everybody is going to look at them like you are. It is why the Browns have kind of been like they were shunned by the league, and no quarterback has gotten what Deshaun Watson got. They want what Watson got, but no team is going to give a quarterback what Watson got.
I thought we would get to a point where eventually, like football will be like other sports. Like the contract is the contract. It's guaranteed. It's mind-blowing that of all the sports, the one that is the most physical, the one where you suffer career-ending injuries, the one where it ends early, that your contract isn't fully guaranteed.
The Jags could have an agreement on a renovated stadium in the next couple of months here. They've got a timeline that they've proposed where they would play their home games at the stadium in 24 and 25. Then in 26, if they play in the current venue, the capacity would be reduced down to 45,000. And then in 27, they would have to play all their home games at an alternate location because of these renovations. Now,
are they giving you any alternate locations?
Well, I mean, they don't have to. They already know what that alternate location is.
All right, so
I'm Shad Khan. I own a stadium in London.
You would, I guess that you could pitch it to the NFLPA. It's like, hey, it's just a 1-year deal. That's all it is. Everybody go over to London.
Well, it's a 1-year deal unless it isn't, because you have that threat. And if you don't get the public money you want, then this renovation doesn't happen.
Oh, right, because like they were asking for what was it, $1 billion from the state of Florida, and like, okay, even Florida, I don't know if they have that money lying around. So.
Yeah, that'll be an interesting one to watch. Is they're kind of trying to push this ahead here, and if they do move forward with a renovated stadium, there will be a season there where the Jags will be playing their home games somewhere other than their home stadium. And along those lines, we were talking earlier about a story from the Buffalo News that came up in our feeds over the weekend, and it's been such a busy week that we haven't really been able to talk much about the Buffalo Bills experience.
WIVB, I think, was the one where they brought in the reporter, but the reporter can't tell you exactly what it is about because they signed a non-disclosure. Like, what is it? How much does it cost? Can't tell you that. So in a strip mall somewhere outside of Buffalo, I think it's in Williamsville, you've got this Bills Stadium experience, but you just can't go in there, Danger. Like, hey, I'm curious. Like, I'd like to know. Nope. Somebody's at the door. You've got to have an appointment. So it's like a doctor's office. It's for invite only. You need to make the appointment, or you're being asked at some point by your ticket rep, this is the time you come down. And the time that you come down, you are going to sit through this 90-minute presentation, which we don't have many timeshares here in Western New York. It certainly sounds like one of those times.
Yeah.
Do they offer you free play to the casino up in Niagara Falls?
Yeah, I think
Do they offer you a free lunch?
I think I might have gotten like a fast pass at Disney once because I sat through the vacation club thing.
No, you're kidding. You really did that? Oh,
no. But they try. They're set up everywhere. Hey, do you have a few minutes of your time to talk about... Yeah, no.
And by the way, if you don't sign for the Buffalo, or if you do and you regret it, hey, I'm Chuck McDowell, CEO. If you bought the PSL to the Buffalo Bills,
he's not like Big Lou. Big Lou's like you. He's on number 2. Different guy. The thing that I need to know, I'm just dying to know, what is the big ask? What is the PSL? If you sign a non-disclosure agreement as you're walking into the door of the Buffalo Bills experience and you're not allowed to talk about what happens behind those closed doors, somebody at some point is going to say something.
Yeah, that's why I was wondering, like, can somebody secretly film this and put it up on YouTube? I'd like to know, what does this like? And you're going to see the artist renderings that we've seen a few, but you're going to get the whole experience, and you're going to see all your seating options. And then reportedly, you will also get what the PSL kind of costs in there. But you know what? If you roll it up to one low monthly payment, and oh, wait a second, if it's too high there, we can put it over this many years.
I wonder if they even give you the option of just paying for it up front. I mean, you're going to take my money one way or the other. Instead of financing it and giving an interest rate to a M&T bank, can I just pay for the whole thing up front, or are they not even allowing that? These are the questions that I have. I'm just so fascinated by it. And because, let's face it, we're probably never going to go through this in our lifetimes again with this stadium for sure, right? I mean, like, the life cycle of an NFL stadium for some reason has become like 20 years. But in Buffalo, I don't see 20 years from now us saying, well, time for a new stadium. This was fun. This is going to last for the rest of our lives.
Maybe we get a new hockey arena in our lifetime.
I would hear that, yes.
We're not going to get anything new in Rochester in our lifetime.
No. But I'm so fascinated by this process and this story and how the Bills are keeping everything hush-hush and under the radar, as if to say, we don't want that number to be revealed. We don't want people to know that we're charging X for the premium seat, for the private seat license, the PSL, that other NFL teams have charged their season ticket holders.
Yeah, or we don't want you telling people, oh my God, because honestly, what is it? It's a $5,000 tax, a $10,000 tax, whatever it is. They won't use the word tax. It's a license. I get it. It's fascinating.
But that's the money that goes right to the Pagulas. That is not going back into the stadium. That is not going back into the community. That is going right to the Pagulas.
How is a stadium getting built? 100% by you and I. With the tax dollars, number one. And then number two, well, didn't the Pagulas put in this? No. They did up front, and the PSL goes right back to them.
That's right. And then some. They're not doing anything to break even. That's not how it works. They're not doing anything to break even. So just keep that in mind. I struggle with it, man. I really do. I think to myself, if I don't have the ability to pay for it up front, I don't care what it is. I mean, maybe the house being the exception. You know, you live with the mortgage and you try to pay that off as quickly as you can. But man, when you're talking about something like this or a car or any kind of big, like, if I don't want to finance anything. I don't want to give away free money.
Do they hit you with add-ons too? Like, you go in for the car, you want the extended. No, I don't want the extended warranty. You can buy, no.
Right.
Like, what would it be? We could. You're gonna get food credits here if you.
Hey, Apple Care. We would like to extend Apple Care. Are you sure this is a good idea? Like, look, Apple Care sounds nice, but I have a 14-year-old daughter. I'm sure she can figure it out if I can't.
Premium parking.
Ooh, premium.
They're gonna charge you up, and that's one right there. The
premium park,
extra $100 a game, But if you finance the $800 a year you would pay in the premium parking,
premium parking will be a paved lot instead of the gravel dirt lot that we're gonna make everybody. The peasantry gets to park over there. The pile of dirt. Let's get to a round of shots next.
Yeah, so stories we're chasing here, as we do have the Sabres here tonight. We do have the Syracuse Orange bombing out. How about the Amerks pulling off one big? We did have a big trade in baseball we got to get to, and because I love pointing out flaws with this whole A's move to Las Vegas, what might have been one of the dumbest quotes we've seen in some time.
That's on the way next. Your calls for last call right now at 866-4FAN, 585-866-4326.
You're listening to the Sports Bar. Sports Update.
Meaningful hockey in March here for the Buffalo Sabres. Are 5 points out of a playoff spot. Right now, it's the Islanders and Red Wings tied for that final spot. The Islanders, the opponent tonight. Sabres head coach Don Granato says, watch that top line.
It's obviously three players that command respect, and you have to contend with elite talent, and be aware of that. This league has lots of impressive talent, and when you look at their lineup tonight, you have three guys of that stature on one line. Yes, it demands your attention.
Coverage will begin at 7 here on The Fan. The Buffalo Bills bringing back running back Ty Johnson. Former Buffalo Bills quarterback Nathan Peterman signing today with New Orleans. ACC tournament, Pitt over Wake Forest 81-69. Top seed North Carolina hammering Florida State 92-67. Gene Battaglia, the sports leader. The Fan, Rochester.
Bone-crunching hits, backboard-shattering dunks, bat flips, and hat tricks. 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
All right, it's time for a round of shots in the sports bar with Danger and Battaglia.
Yeah, we mentioned how the Sabres are 5 points back. We got to point out also the Sabres have played 2 more games than Detroit, 1 more game than the Islanders. So that's why when you see only 3%, you're saying, wait a second, it's got to be more than that. No, that's pretty much what the stats tell us. Unlike Detroit, who's dropped 6 in a row, the Owls come into KeyBank Arena 7-3 in their last 10. They had a 6-game winning streak of their own somewhere in there. Coverage begins at 7 tonight.
We're looking forward to this game. If they can play like they played on Tuesday against Detroit, you got to give them a chance, even against a team that's hot like the Islanders. You saw what they did against Edmonton. They played good against Edmonton as well. I'm telling you, they look like a different team. I know it's probably too little too late, and if you're not invested, I wouldn't blame you, but at minimum, it's fun to watch.
One other note I found interesting, the Islanders play in a big market. However, they're still doing things like this. The radio crew of Chris King and Greg Picker will not be in Buffalo tonight unless the game was within driving distance. The Islanders do not send the radio team on the road. They call the game off the monitor. Yeah, the pandemic 4 years ago forced some of this stuff, but part of it, the Islanders won't help out here. One of Lou Lamoriello's rules is he doesn't want team broadcasters on charter flights.
Really? Cheap.
Yeah.
Cheap.
Is it cheap on the Islanders or cheap on whoever is airing the games?
I know. I mean, like the thing about the pandemic that changed so much, like we made it through and we had to alter so much of our day to day that companies just learned, hey, we can trim the fat here, we can trim the fat there. Doesn't really affect anything. It does affect it.
Oh, you're not serving your listeners. In this case of hockey, how would you know if the goaltender's pulled? Like you wouldn't. Like, right. Oh, hey, with extra. Or how would you know that the official has his arm up? There's so much going away from the camera. Anyhow,
you call games. I mean, that would be a hard task for you, right? To just call it solely off the monitor, being there.
I wouldn't want to do it at all. Like for Fisher football, we go on the road. Like I want to see here. You want to be there. Correct. So cheapo Islanders. The Amherst withstood a big push from Syracuse in the third last night. The Crunch out shooting Rochester 11-4 in the period. Amherst holding on for the 3-2 win. Newcomer Kali Jalin of the Amherst just scored not only his first goal as an Amherst, but it was the first defenseman, his goal in the AHL since last April. Rochester pushing now as the home and home coming up tomorrow night. The front end, Rochester taking on Toronto. Remaining in third place in the North, 1 point ahead of Belleville, 3 of Toronto. Friday, again, we will hear on Irish Night. We'll have the coverage tomorrow night beginning at 7.
Now, tomorrow afternoon in the sports bar, the inaugural visit from Andrew Mossbrooks, who you hear from time to time with Don Stevens.
Who, if you've noticed, there's kind of like a John Sterling thing going on with Don. This is not a secret. If you listen and wait, Don's not on the call tonight. Well, John Sterling with the Yankees kind of powering down here. So not every road game Don goes on anymore. So it was Andrew on the call last night
in Syracuse. Okay.
Syracuse. So, we'll get to meet the part-time voice of the Amherst here coming up tomorrow in the sports bar. Yeah, we've gone a while without talking about that team that plays down the thruway, plays basketball. Any hopes of the Syracuse Orange getting into the tournament? They went up in smoke last night. The Orange got hammered by a team they previously beat twice this season. 83-65 wound up being the final. SU was sloppy. 19 turnovers leading to 30 points for the Wolfpack. That's the difference. Syracuse head coach Adrian Autry, though, said he is open to the idea of accepting a bid to the NIT should it come their way. Syracuse at 21-12 this season.
Well, there's a 100% chance that the NIT will send an invite Syracuse's way. Whether or not they accept it is the thing to question.
Yeah, there's been more and more teams that are just like, nah, you know what, we're good. And part of the reason is it's portal time. Like, like literally, you're almost like negotiating with some of your kids here. Like, hey, you want to stay? I know you had that trip planned for wherever. Like, you're asking them to do more work. So this is a byproduct of the portal that the NIT is taking a big hit here. By the way, do we really care about the NIT when your team's not in it?
I mean, you'll watch if they're playing in the NIT. I think you'll watch.
You'll watch Syracuse.
Yeah.
But if your team is not in it,
No.
you don't care at all.
Uh-uh.
No. There have been rumors for a while that the Chicago White Sox would move from their ace Dylan Cease. Cease got moved, but not to the big market club like the Yankees. He goes to the Padres. Cease 2 years ago was great. His ERA 2.2 last year, not so good, 4.58. San Diego sending 4 prospects in return. So even though the Padres shed payroll this winter, getting rid of Juan Soto and others, a rotation headed by Yu Darvish, Joe Musgrove, and now Dylan Cease, that's okay.
Yeah, fine. They're in the same division as the Dodgers. This doesn't matter.
Sure it does.
Nah.
Who won the National League last year?
Oh, that was Arizona, yeah.
Yeah. And who's in that division?
Oh, yeah, the Dodgers are in that division.
Yeah, so like, there's your flaw.
Well, no.
By the way, that's a pop quiz. Like, who's in the World Series last year? Oh,
You got to think. Right. Texas is the champs.
Yeah,
right. Forgot about that. Texas won. No, I just, the way it's gone this offseason and the way everything has gone the way of the Dodgers, I just have a hard time believing that anything out west matters because of how stacked the Dodgers are.
I think the Dodgers right now, the idea of playing Mookie Betts at shortstop, I'm like, what are we doing here? That's I don't know. No triple-double for Luka last night, Danger. There is a streak of 7 straight games playing. Tonight he's a question mark for this game. It's the back end of the doubleheader on TNT, Mavs in Oklahoma City. First up, it's the Celtics hosting the Suns at 7:30. Also tonight in the NBA, the Knicks are out in Portland.
Good stuff.
And finally, it's always fun to roast the Oakland A's, is it not? Their management, so questionable. So many details about a planned move to Las Vegas are lacking here. A's team president Dave Cavall, though, he's getting killed for this quote, the most important MLB venue since Oriole Park at Camden Yards.
Get
Talking
outta
about
here.
okay, that's debatable, I guess, but this is the part that's not. Quote, I like the example of the Dodgers. Our relocation is most similar to the Dodgers move out of Brooklyn. Dangers, there's so much wrong with this quote. Not to go all baseball writer, but the Dodgers were a perennial World Series team playing in Brooklyn, and the A's, they kind of suck, right? Also, what the O'Malley family did, it changed all of sports. The Dodgers being the first team to plant their flag on the West Coast, opening the door for other teams.
Why is baseball the only sport that does this, that clings to an era that none of us care about? I don't care about what happened in the 1950s. I mean, you can tell me about the Dodgers, the Brooklyn Dodgers, and what. Okay, that was. I don't care. It doesn't matter to me now. So he's pulling a quote and comparing something that happened in the 1950s to something that he's trying to do now. Do you know how different the world is now than it was in the 1950s? Why would you even bring that up if you're this guy?
You're asking questions I don't know the answer.
That's crazy to me. I compare this to the Brooklyn Dodgers. What do you mean the Brooklyn Dodgers? Were they playing stickball? Is that what they... Back in our day, we just play... Get out of here. How out of touch are you? I don't care about what happened in the 1950s, man. I mean, I respect history. I respect that it happened. I mean, unless you're lying to me.
No, I would not do that.
Unless
the Dodgers once upon a time played in New York City and Brooklyn.
All right, well, I mean, I don't believe everything I read. Everything I read on the internet, I only listen to Aaron Rodgers. Really, that's the only source I need. My tinfoil hat is
Do we have
askew.
Aaron Rodgers breaking news at the end of the show today?
Yeah,
Hopefully not.
Aaron Rodgers believes that the Brooklyn Dodgers never played in Brooklyn. That's how he's trying to win over the New York Jets fan base there. He wants to win over
Aaron Rodgers said the Rochester Royals never existed.
That's right. Last call next in the sports bar. And Gino, I know that, speaking of conspiracy theories, I know that there's something else that happened today in the world of sports, an announcement that came from a professional franchise that you are calling BS on. You're saying, I don't believe this happened.
I think it's a stunt.
Oh.
I think it's a stunt.
Okay. We're going to expose this team next.
Okay, we also have another Buffalo Bill leaving that will help the Bills' compensatory formula.
Very good. Now that is a tease. We'll get to that and more next. Last call, along with your phone calls at 866-4326, 585-866-4FAN. Bet the NBA with a no-sweat same-game parlay from FanDuel every Thursday night with TNT Thursdays. It's me, Mike Danger, for FanDuel Sportsbook, the official partner of 95.7 The Fan. And it doesn't matter if you're new to FanDuel or if you already have an account, you'll get bonus bets back if your same-game parlay doesn't win on any NBA on TNT game. NBA same-game parlays are the perfect way to combine your bets for a chance to score a bigger payday. So whichever game you like tonight for TNT's doubleheader, however you want to play, just head over to FanDuel.com/Mike, M-I-K-E, to bet the NBA with a no-sweat same-game parlay with TNT Thursdays. That's FanDuel.com/Mike, M-I-K-E. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. 21 plus and physically present in New York. Minimum 3-leg parlay required. Refund issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets, which expire 7 days after receipt. Max refund $5 unless otherwise specified. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. For help with a gambling problem, call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369.
You're listening to the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia. Wings are hot. You're in the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia on the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
All right, quickly as we close up shop here in the Sports Bar with a couple of breaking items, breaking news items that we know. Here.
It really hit me. I didn't know it was coming back that far.
We know what we're going to be talking about tomorrow in the Sports Bar.
Ryan Talbot first to break this. Curtis Samuel was a Buffalo Bill.
There we go.
3 years, 24, up to $30 million, $15 million guaranteed. So the former Commander, former Panther, Curtis Samuel, wide receiver in Buffalo, going out the door. Tim Settle, he goes to Houston, 2 years, $7 million up to.
All right, so the Settle thing, I think we can kind of whatever, he can go, and that helps the comp pick formula. That's great. The Curtis Samuel signing, I think a lot of people had him pegged as somebody that the Bills would have an interest in. And Joe Brady had worked with him in Carolina. He's a separation guy. Yep. Makes a lot of sense. So that's a bit exciting. That's beyond what you would get out of a Trent Sherfield kind of signing or even a Mac Hollins signing like we got earlier this week.
Yeah, and the payoff on the tees in Pittsburgh, Jaromir Jagr bobblehead night tonight, where they announced that the bobbleheads were actually stolen. I think it's stage danger. I think it's all a stunt.
Stop it.
It's a stunt.
Listen to this guy.
Stunt.
Gene Rogers over here. He's got his conspiracy theory that they're stunting about stolen bobbleheads in Pittsburgh. Well, tomorrow we'll have Chris Mack, who's in Pittsburgh, to talk about the state of the Steelers right now. Maybe he can lend a little bit of an opinion on that story as well, Gino. And Andrew Mossbrook's joining us in studio to talk Amerks hockey tomorrow at 3:25. JR Sport Brief next on The Fan.
Cracked windshield? Chipped windshield? Get it fixed fast. Call your neighborhood glass company, Ray Sands Glass. Ray Sands Glass accepts your insurance. Did you know you can choose any glass company you want for repair?